From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Thank you, everybody. Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 13th, 2017 meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. This is our 2 p.m. session. We're going to begin with report on actions taken in closed session, so I'm going to ask Chief Deputy County Counsel Margot Raison to give that report.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener and Supervisors. A closed session was held for items number 45 and 46 on the morning agenda. No reportable action was taken.
Thank you, Ms. Raison. And next item on our agenda will be our consent agenda. If you'd like to follow along with our agendas today, they were located at the two back tables. I see there still are a few copies. All items listed with a CA above the item are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item or items on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken on the consent agenda. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda, and it will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. So this time I'm going to read the consent agenda items. So starting on page 2, item 3 and 4 are on consent. On page 3, all items 5 through 7 are on consent. However, the recommendation in all caps is to be changed on item 5. It should say continue to 6/2017, so June 20th, 17. On page 4, all items 8 through 11 are on consent. On page 5, all items 12 through 14 are on consent. On page 6, item 15 and 16 is on consent, as well as 19. And on page 7, all items 20 through 25 are on consent. And finally, on page 8, all items 26 through 33 are on consent. So are there any members of the audience that would like to make a comment on the consent agenda items? Okay, seeing none, I'll return to the board and ask if a board member would like to pull an item, or I would request a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion on consent.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Next item on our agenda is back to page 2. This is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. So I'll ask if there are any members of the audience that would like to make a statement on an item that is under our jurisdiction but not on today's agenda. Okay, seeing none, then I'll move on to board member announcements and reports. Any reports from board members? Okay, then the next item on our agenda is on page 6, and that is item 17. So this is a public hearing to consider resolution and ordinance establishing for fiscal year 2017-2018 the schedule of universal solid waste collection charges for residential properties with 4 or fewer units and residential properties with 5 or more units in the existing and expanded Metropolitan Bakersfield universal collection area, expanding the existing boundaries with no increase in rates and providing for the collection of rates on the tax roll. And so I'm going to ask our Public Works Director, Mr. Craig Pope, if he would like to start us off on this item.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Today's item, the Metro Bakersfield Universal Collection Area Expansion and addition of multifamily, which is 5 or more units per parcel, is an item that's very complex, lots of different pieces. I'm just going to try and do a little simple approach to start with. In the Metropolitan Bakersfield area, the unincorporated area, not in the city limits, but the unincorporated area, there's a boundary line today. Within that boundary line into the city of Bakersfield, we have an area that we collect. It's already on the tax roll. The fees for the haulers to come and pick up your garbage, it's a mandatory thing. It's on the tax roll. They just come and do it. First of all, we're planning an expansion of this area. Second, we're going to include in this the multifamily, which is 5 or more units per parcel, and define what that is, define how we do it, define what it incorporates and how the fees all are on it. Historically, we've been since 2000, we've had this universal collection area, but we haven't done the multifamily 5 or more, and it's been a problem. So why are we doing this? Why are we going to the trouble of expanding the area and picking up a multifamily? It's really about public health and safety. We at Public Works spend a great deal of our time doing cleanup, both bulky items and just, we find a lot of our garbage that comes from is a multifamily. It's just not set up well. So in this area of the unincorporated Bakersfield that is still rather urbanized, but it's outside the city limits, we're proposing this boundary change. And when we get into the details, and Ms. Nancy, we'll go through all the details that are incorporated in this. But basically, we're doing this to try and reduce illegal dumping, to make it a cleaner and healthier environment. So at this point, I'd like to ask Ms. Ewert to go into all the details that are involved in this process.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener and members of the board. Title 14 State Minimum Standards requires that property owners are responsible to remove all refuse accumulated on site every 7 days. In urban areas, this is typically accommodated and accomplished by city ordinance, which requires mandatory solid waste collection for residents and businesses. In Kern County, 10 of 11 cities have implemented mandatory collection. In the unincorporated Kern County, your board has designated 6 universal collection areas, including the Metropolitan Bakersfield Universal Collection Area, that stipulates the level and frequency of solid waste collection services and has placed the service fee for residential parcels with 1 to 4 units on the tax roll. The Metropolitan Bakersfield Universal Collection Area was established in 2000, and in 2003, the area was expanded to include the Lamont area and developing areas in northwest Bakersfield. In 2013, source-separated recycling was included in the standard level of service for residential parcels with 1 to 4 units. Today, the Public Works Department proposes the following. By resolution to expand the Metropolitan Bakersfield boundary, to establish a standard level of service for multifamily parcels with 5 or more units, and by resolution to place the service fees for all residential parcels in the universal collection area on the tax roll and continue the rate adjustment mechanism. As Mr. Pope mentioned earlier, the primary purpose for establishing universal collection is to protect public health, safety, and the well-being of the residents of Kern County. After the Metro Universal Collection Area was established in 2000 and expanded in 2003, a marked improvement was seen in neighborhoods with single-family parcels and in the Lamont area. However, certain areas with many multifamily complexes did not improve and actually continued to deteriorate. Additionally, with the passage of AB 341, mandatory commercial recycling, multifamily parcels with 5 or more units are required to recycle, and the county faces increased pressure from Cal Recycle to ensure compliance. To effect the recommended actions, the county is required to conduct a Proposition 218 public protest hearing. To that end, over 45,000 public notices were mailed on April 26th. The notice of public hearing was published 3 times in the Bakersfield Californian. The public information meeting was held on May 11th after being advertised on May 7th and May 9th in the Bakersfield Californian. And of course, today is the actual public protest hearing. The threshold to prohibit action is 22,548 written protests. To date, the county has received 12 written protests. This map delineates in blue the 2003 geographic area of the Metropolitan Bakersfield Universal Collection Area. Delineated in gray is the 2003 Bakersfield city limits. The outer gray dashed line delineates the limits of the Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan. Since 2003, the metropolitan area has experienced considerable growth. The Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan boundary has not changed. However, the city has expanded into the northwest and southwest, and the county unincorporated area has developed outside of the existing universal collection area. Therefore, the department proposes to expand the universal collection area to include the area delineated in yellow. It is important to note that universal collection does not apply to undeveloped or unimproved parcels, even within the universal collection area. The existing level of service for residential parcels with 1 to 4 units is established at 250 gallons per week of solid waste service. This includes a 100-gallon refuse cart serviced weekly, a 100-gallon green waste cart serviced weekly, and a 100-gallon recycling cart serviced biweekly. Residents also receive curbside bulky waste collection. These services are provided at $20.83 per month and are placed on the tax roll. The department proposes no change to the level of service or the service rate for residential parcels with 1 to 4 units. Currently, the county has no established level of solid waste service for multifamily parcels with 5 or more units. In surveying 72 multifamily complexes in the universal collection area, 6 had no service, as service had been discontinued for non-payment. The complexes range from 5 units to 150 units per parcel and provided from 50 gallons to 171 gallons of service per unit per week. Only 1 complex provided recycling. The department proposes that parcels with 5 or more units provide 150 gallons of combined solid waste collection service per week, 100 gallons of refuse service weekly, and 100 gallons of recycling service biweekly. Multifamily complexes will also receive bulky waste collection. These services will be provided for $35 per unit per month for bin service and $17.56 per unit per month for cart service. Bin service is appropriate for large complexes in which cart service is not practical. Large complexes were designed for bin service and are serviced by front loader packer trucks. Cart service is ideal for mobile home parks, condominiums, and townhouses that can efficiently be serviced by a side loader packer truck. As stated before, many multifamily complexes have elected to provide inadequate level of service, which results in overflowing bins and contributes to public health and safety issues. This alley is located between Quincy and Flower in East Bakersfield and is typical of the neighborhood. Additionally, multifamily complexes and certain areas will be targeted for routine bulky waste collection. In certain areas, when residents move or the furniture or appliance is no longer functional, the resident simply abandons the bulky waste. Furniture with bed bugs and broken appliances cannot be salvaged or reused. This also contributes to a public health and safety issue and creates a very unattractive public nuisance. This alley is located between North Chester and Pacer near Pilot Avenue in Oildale, and again, is typical of the neighborhood. Finally, since 2012, multifamily complexes have been required to recycle by state law. In 2015, the department notified 406 parcels in Metro Bakersfield containing 8,914 units of the law and the programs available to comply. The department monitored the response and compliance through solid waste collection reports and saw very little participation. The department proposes to work with haulers and the multifamily complexes to implement source-separated commingled recycling. The department has currently received a grant to provide special recycling bags to facilitate easy recycling. The bags will be durable and educational and will be distributed through the Kern Services Conservation Corps. You each have a sample of these recycling bags. And the department is factoring in changes that have been documented in the recycling stream. The most obvious change is what is referred to as the Amazon effect. With the increase in online shopping and other buying preferences, the recycling stream is becoming less dense. Plastic is replacing glass and tin cans. Newsprint has diminished, but catalogs have increased. And cardboard and packing material have dramatically increased. While these changes affect all residents, single-family recycling is still twice as dense as multifamily. Therefore, multifamily complexes require a greater volume for adequate recycling service and to limit contamination. Multifamily recycling will also present challenges for placing recycling containers and adjusting for parking constraints. This Oildale neighborhood has a combination of single-family homes and multifamily complexes. The 17 homes along Sunset Meadow Lane can easily and efficiently be serviced with cart service and side loader packers. However, the 48 multifamily units along Yellow Meadow Court require bin service and front loader packers. 48 carts in combination with parking is untenable in this situation. The department and haulers will look for workable solutions to incorporate recycling. As you can see, the same 48 multifamily units from the previous slide are serviced by bins. You can see the enclosures to the front of the units. Each enclosure has a 3 cubic yard refuse container. In this case, the complex owner would either need to add an enclosure for a recycling bin, or one enclosure can be used for trash and the other for recycling, servicing 8 units. The frequency of service can be adjusted to provide adequate refuse and recycling services. Long-term, the department may need to work with the planning department to reduce 1 or 2 parking places in very large complexes to allow recycling, or provide exemptions if no solutions can be found. This ends the staff presentation for the Metropolitan Bakersfield Universal Collection Area proposed actions. Now is the appropriate time to open the public hearing, receive public comment, and consider written protests.
Thank you. This is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposal to expand the boundaries of the Metropolitan Bakersfield Universal Collection Area, include properties with 5 or more residential units, and establish a schedule of solid waste collection charges for residential parcels in the Metropolitan Bakersfield Universal Collection Area for fiscal year 2017-2018. Unless the board has any questions, I will now open the hearing and ask if there are any public comments. If anyone in the audience has any written protests, now is the time to deliver them to the clerk of the board. Anyone with any comments on this item? Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Larry Moxley, representing Kern Refuse Disposal, your 5 franchise haulers. None of us, political leaders such as yourself, business people that I represent, like to deal with state mandates. And a lot of what you've heard from Ms. Ewert are requirements that are being pushed on us as a result of state mandates, number one. But number two, we want our community to look better. And you all have had meetings with me many times, and we work very closely with the department on what we can do to make our community look better, to clean these things up. This will help. We have a lot of programs, as was described by Ms. Ewert. So we're here to support staff and what they're recommending to you, and reminding you just so the next time you see your local hauler, you will thank them. This is the 3rd year in a row you've received a report where we're not asking for a rate increase. So we appreciate Director Pope and Assistant Director Ewert, and we work very closely with them. And I will tell you, in the last 5 or 6 years, it couldn't be better. I've said this to them both privately, and now's a good time to say it publicly. Their professionalism and how well they work with us, even when we have to push and tug a little bit, it's always very friendly and very professional. But we work well with them, and we appreciate the service they bring to you and the public. So we would ask you to support staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moxley. We value our public-private partnership with the folks that you represent, and thank you for your accolades for our staff. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Celida Miramontes. I am a senior staff attorney at Greater Bakersfield Legal Assistance.
Would you please spell your name for the clerk for the record?
Sure. First name is CELIDA, Lida. Last name is Miramontes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. As the board probably knows already, GBLA provides free legal services to eligible low-income persons residing in our service area within Kern County. I've been with GBLA for 8 years now, and currently I am the supervising attorney for the East Bakersfield Neighborhood Revitalization Project. The purpose of this project is to address and eliminate systemic barriers to safe and habitable neighborhoods through outreach, education, and impact litigation as necessary. Our focus is to create safe and habitable rental housing and also some home ownership opportunities for residents of the area that we have targeted. The area that we're working in is as follows. It's bounded by East Beale Avenue and Highway 178. It's west of Mount Vernon Avenue, south of Bernard Street, and north of Flower Street. This is the residential area right behind Kern Medical Center, and it also includes the East Bakersfield Sheriff's Substation. This is within Supervisor Bettis's district. It's an area that is comprised of older homes. Many of them are dilapidated. It's generally a more low-income area of the county. And again, it is outside of the city of Bakersfield. Within this area, what we've done is carved out 2 neighborhoods which have a particularly high concentration of low-income renters. And these renters, again, reside in very dilapidated housing, much of which is owned by landlords who are not present and are not really maintaining these properties. There are also a lot of vacant lots and a lot of other abandoned properties in the area where basically people have moved out and the owners have not secured these properties in any way. These neighborhoods, the first one consists of 214 dwelling units, and the second one consists of 343 dwelling units. Now, what we've actually done since July and August of 2016 is gone door to door to all of these residential units, whether they be an apartment or a triplex, a fourplex, individual single-family home. And we've introduced ourselves. We've introduced the project, and we've tried to provide some basic education regarding landlord-tenant rights, how to request repairs from your landlord, how to file a complaint with code compliance, how to schedule a pickup from waste management if you have, for example, a bed or a stove that you want to throw away. You know, don't just leave it out in the front. But most importantly, what we've done when we've gone around door to door is that we've asked residents how they would like to improve their neighborhood. And fundamentally, their response has been that they would like several things: street lights, sidewalks, further law enforcement presence. But the one thing that they always mention is, we want a cleaner neighborhood. We don't like to see the trash. We don't know why there's so much trash in the neighborhood. In response to this, initially what we did is we worked in collaboration with the Sheriff's Activities League there at the East Bakersfield substation, also with Waste Management and with the Roads Department, and we organized several cleanups. There's been 5 major cleanup events since last summer, all the way through this past May. And what we've done is we've invited residents to come and join us and on Saturday mornings, and we focused on different alleys. Like you saw on the screen, the photographs there, we've targeted those areas to clean them up. And while it's been a great community building opportunity, unfortunately, the trash always comes back. Within a couple of months, if you return to these areas, you're going to see almost the same conditions all over again. All the bulky waste and all the random different pieces of trash. And what we started to notice, or what we've been noticing over this past year, is that the trash is very much concentrated in these multi-unit dwellings that have insufficient trash receptacles. And what we've seen is over and over again, the trash begins to overflow, and it goes into the alley, and it blows into surrounding properties, into abandoned lots. And like I said earlier, the residents aren't happy with this situation, and they've asked us, what can we do about it? Of course, one of the immediate suggestions is, well, you can file a complaint with code compliance. As you can imagine, the tenants who actually live in these multi-dwelling units are the most affected. They're the ones that actually have to go through the trash and don't have enough, don't have a place to throw their trash often. They're dealing with the vermin that's attracted by the trash, et cetera. But the tenants don't necessarily want to file a code compliance complaint against the landlord because they're always afraid that they might be evicted. So, nevertheless, there were several residents, neighbors residing in other apartment buildings or single-family homes who did request our assistance at GBLA to file complaints with code compliance. And we did. We assisted them in doing so. But unfortunately, that didn't have much of an impact because as soon as the trash was actually hauled away by the trash haulers, there was no longer a violation. And so there was nothing that code compliance could do to pursue this issue any further. So the only other practical possibility in order to address this issue would be potentially to file individual public nuisance lawsuits against these owners who don't have sufficient trash receptacles. And as you can imagine, as with any litigation, it would be time-consuming, it would be costly, and the outcome would be, frankly, uncertain. So it would not be the best way to target the problem. Now, I'll just finish with this. I do want the board to know that we notified as many residents in neighborhoods 1 and 2 that we've been working with who've been active in the project. We let them know that this hearing was taking place and invited them to participate. Unfortunately, we're dealing with a population who, as I stated earlier, is predominantly very low income. So transportation is often an issue. And if they are employed, it's not easy for them to take the afternoon off. They don't have that flexibility. So while they all expressed their interest in being here, unfortunately, we weren't able to get very many to show up today. But we do have one resident who's been very active in our project and would like to address the board, and her name is Norma Cerda. Thank you.
You need to spell your name.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Norma Cerda, and it's C-E-R-D-A, and I'm a resident in East Bakersfield, right behind Kern Medical Center. I'm here today to testify to the board why I support the proposal that would require properties with 5 or more units to obtain basic solid waste collection and place a collection of fees for these services on the property tax rolls. For years, I have witnessed alleys, sidewalks, and vacant lots in my neighborhood be overfilled with trash from these properties because there is no adequate level of service or failed payment from the property owners to the collection company. As a result, the areas near these properties not only pose a safety and health risk to my family and neighbors, but such properties have created serious eyesore. As a homeowner, I know that when properties become dilapidated, run down, it affects the value of my property. I ask that the board to consider supporting the proposal to make not just East Bakersfield look nicer, but all parts of the county. My neighborhood is in desperate need of this proposal so it can eliminate the blight it has experienced for years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Sanchez. I'm a senior deputy with the Kern County Sheriff's Department. My current capacity, I run the sheriff's activities league out of East Bakersfield. And as Celida was saying, we do many cleanups. That's part of our program. All of the cleanups that we've done, like she said, in a couple months, 1 month, as few as a little weeks, the problem is back. The trash piles up, and it's mainly behind these multifamily apartments. While it gives our kids something to do, these are the same kids that have to live in those conditions. So a lot of the times, the kids will want to go hit their own neighborhoods or where they live to try to clean up the problem. I'm supporting this action because it's going to alleviate a lot of the problems with the trash being piled up in the alleys as well as blowing out into the street. It's a huge eyesore in the neighborhood. The kids I work with, they have to live in this area. They raise concern about it because a lot of the times there's syringes, drug paraphernalia and such in the alleys. And a lot of the times the parents won't allow them to play out in the alley where there's less traffic because of this. So I just think if this was to pass, this would alleviate a lot of the issues that are going on in East Bakersfield, not only that area, but the Oildale area as well, as far as the trash piling up in the alleys.
Thank you, Deputy.
Good afternoon. My name is Wayne Martin. With some of the other comments that were made, I'm wondering whether I should be here. Okay, I am a multifamily property owner in Oildale, and those were not slides of my property, so I just want to get that known. Okay, right now. I have a small 9-unit apartment complex. I've had the property for about 9 years, and we have we have a real small community. There's about 9 tenants. I did attend the meeting that occurred in May, and I have also filed my letter of protest. I filed my letter of protest because I was concerned about the impact that the proposal would have on my tenants, as well as myself as a property owner. But I'm happy to report that I have had discussions with staff, and right now I'm feeling very comfortable with the discussions we've had, as well as some of the modifications to the proposal that we've discussed. I am waiting for written confirmation, but your staff, I believe, is doing an outstanding job working with me as a multifamily owner, and I really appreciate the work that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Appreciate that. Do we have any other speakers on this subject?
Good afternoon. My name is Shelley Thompson, and excuse me. I too would like to reiterate that this is an ongoing problem in our city, and it will do the city much justice to have these issues addressed and to clean up these lower income areas. However, in showing the map, it extends all the way to Bear Mountain Highway. I happen to be a resident in that area. I reside between Taft Highway and Bear Mountain Highway. We live in an area predominantly of farms and high acreage properties. When I tour my neighborhood, we don't have the issues that have been displayed here today. We don't have a single multifamily unit within a 5 square mile area. And we don't have trash laden around our properties. My personal property, I have 4 bins. I pay $460 a year for my trash service, and I enjoy the opportunity to have black cans where I can choose whether I have green waste or other waste to put in those. My neighborhood has also expressed a problem with this. However, they have felt that they're a small number of people and not interested in trying to combat, and you can see that by the measly 12 letters of protest that you received. But I would suggest maybe relooking at the map and taking pictures of those areas that are drawn up in the map that don't reflect these problems that have been expressed today. Again, we have farms in our area, horse owners. We manage our trash, I feel, quite sufficiently, and I would like you to consider our needs as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Any other speakers? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, lady and gentlemen. My name is Nelson Castro, Nelson Castro, and I fall into the area of one of the property owners. And again, my property wasn't illustrated there. I did sign a letter of protest, and I submitted it just yesterday. I guess I am guilty of not following all the issues involved in this proposal since its inception. My wife advised me, hey, you need to take care of this, and I did it at maybe the last minute. But you know, it's hard to get past the 50%. With 12 people opposing and the majority, I think we have to assume, or at least from my perspective, it's going to happen one way or the other. The thing I'd ask you to consider is the cost effectiveness of it. From the looks of it, you know, there's economies of scale that don't seem to be incorporated into the fees. Now, it's going to cost me financially more money, and I don't think that this is yearly, and the proposal adds another layer of bureaucracy with no necessarily benefit to me, because I think I can negotiate for my own interest better than allowing someone to come in and take over the management. It's akin to maybe increasing or charging us also electricity and billing us for the electricity costs, and then also gas costs. You know, we can negotiate our trash disposal and comply as necessary, but the economies of scale don't seem to be included in there because you have a big step going from 4 units to 5 and 6. Also, when you initially do the cleanup, the purpose noted is just to clean up the neighborhoods, make it, you know, hazardous, safety, and so on. Once all that's done, maintenance is much easier to follow through, so there should be an initial cost. This can be handled with an additional amount in our tax bill. Do the initial cleanup costs, and there you are. You're back to where we were, and just apply the necessary trash collections as we would normally do without the intervention with this proposal. But again, the economies of scale are not there. It does impact us financially. Effectively, what it does is it reduces the property value. And the way all the bills are made, tax bills, is based on property value. So now if you're going to put a burden on property owners, which will effectively, because you look at the economics of the whole thing, it's going to reduce property values. All that needs to be adjusted. I don't know that that is necessarily necessary. I think the numbers that have been presented here as costs and what it will, how it will impact us are arbitrary. Typical cost of $35 a unit, whatever those numbers were. But there is a substantial economic hit, and I don't see the necessary benefits other than cleaning up the neighborhood, which can be done in other manners probably. Anyway, I did want to voice those concerns. Look at how the costs are distributed. Look at property values, its impact on property values, and make it an equitable distribution of the charges to everybody, because as I said, I think it's going to go forward looking at the opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. Are there any other speakers on this issue? Okay. Seeing none, I'll ask Madam Clerk, have there been any written protests filed to you prior to this time? I know that we did receive Mr. Castro, as you acknowledged.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we received 12, as stated by Nancy Ewert, and Mr. Castro's protest was included in the 12. We have not received any additional protests.
Okay, very good. So I'll now close the public hearing and we'll return to staff. Mrs. Ewert, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll ask Ms. Ewert to respond.
Supervisor Scrivener and members of the board, there's just a couple of comments I'd like to make. Ms. Thompson also came to the public information meeting, and she was describing an area which is south of Taft Highway to Bear Mountain and from 99 east to Enos Lane. And I've put this area up on the screen now. While this area is a developing area, there's two primary areas that have been developed for a number of years. One is on your left, which is 200 2.5 acre parcels, and there's an additional 63 1 to 1.5 acre parcels in that area. And then the area right at 99, and that's an additional 99 parcels. The issue, of course, that we've described is a public health and safety issue, but it is also a compliance with recycling mandates issue. And so as we move forward, we are looking to make sure that we have recycling in as efficient areas as we can. Now, this particular area does have a lot of 2.5 acre parcels. A lot of the residents have garbage collection currently, but everything's commingled, as Ms. Thompson said, in a black barrel. The organics is mixed with the recyclables, is mixed with the refuse. When mandatory commercial recycling or universal collection is implemented, we do give the homeowners both the organics containers and the recycling containers. And in this case, because they're large parcels, the haulers on a regular basis have provided even additional service for bins for whichever is the largest volume that property owner needs. In this case, and in this area, I would expect that to be an organics container because of landscape material, manures, and that sort of thing. And so in this case, the property owners actually are not at a deficit for this. Whatever they're paying on the tax roll is credited to them for their service, and they pay the additional. But even in these areas, 200 parcels, it is important to be able to implement and meet those recycling goals. So, but I leave that for your board to consider. And the other issue, of course, from Mr. Castro was the issue of the recycling and of the rates. I will let you know that the rates that we proposed, the $35 per month per unit and the $17 for the multifamily for like the mobile homes, those were built off of existing rates that have been approved by the board in 2015. So, and I can actually show you, if you wish, how those rates were constructed. But in looking at the rates that have been already set, the rate for the multifamily would actually have been up around $36.80-something per unit. And in working with the haulers and in adding some things in, we settled on $35 per unit for bin service. When we made the presentation, we talk a little bit about the difference of bin service and cart service. And so you may ask, why is bin service more expensive than cart service? And that is because a side loader can go down a street and very efficiently process the carts and can service a lot of homes in a very small period of time. When a front loader has to service a bin, it's a very different story. They basically have to pull in, the driver has to get out, they have to pull the cart out, it is serviced, and they have to push it back in. It's much more labor intensive, and that is why bin service is more expensive than cart service. But for certain multifamily situations, it's the only thing that really will work and is tenable for that community.
Thank you. Ms. Pope?
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that was voiced was the concern about the boundaries. First of all, the urban area in the multifamily speaks for itself. I think we're doing nothing but good by including them in this. Some of the concerns were, why are we extending the boundary out into what appears to be a rural area? Ms. Ewart just talked about some of those rural areas are developing into higher density areas, but also the boundaries facilitate the efficiencies of the haulers. If we went zigzagging in, the cost would have to go up because the hauler cost would have to go up. This was a good balance, we feel, between all the costs that are out there, and we strongly support the boundaries as they are and the program that we have proposed.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. So at this time, I'll return to the board. I'll ask if any board members have any questions or comments. Okay, seeing none, I know this vote will require a 4/5 vote. But my question is, are we voting on this item in one action, or do we have to take separate actions?
Supervisor Scrivener, it is one action.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ewert. And so I will ask once again if the board members have any questions or comments, or I'll request a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Couch?
thank the speakers for coming today and thank the staff for your hard work. I think this is a step we need to take, so I'll make a motion on staff's recommendation.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, all ayes.
Thank you. Mr. Pope and Ms. Ewert, thank you very much for your work on this issue. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an item under County Administrative Office. This is item 18. And this is a response to a May 2nd, 2017 board referral regarding concerns with property assessed clean energy or PACE program consumer protections. Excuse me, and I'll ask Mr. Alsop to start us off, and I know he'll be assisted by Thomas Brown with our County Administrative Office. So when you two fellows are settled in, go ahead and begin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Thomas Brown of the CAO's office will provide the report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The item before you is a response to a board referral made on May 2nd, directing staff to conduct a stakeholder meeting, prepare a formal written response for review by the board, and allow a follow-up discussion regarding concerns with consumer protections offered under the Property Assessed Clean Energy, or PACE program. In brief, PACE programs offer property owners an additional method to finance energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades by attaching the debt for those upgrades to the property rather than the borrower. The debt is repaid through an assessment on the annual property tax bill. CAO convened the stakeholder meeting on May 10th and invited representatives from the local real estate and appraisal industries, Chamber of Commerce, Kern Tax, local contractors, PACE providers, and other county staff to participate. The meeting began with the spokesperson for the groups opposing PACE, identifying 13 key concerns with the program, which are included as Exhibit A of your board packet. Among these concerns, the group emphasized a fundamental disagreement with the state of California's enabling legislation, Assembly Bill 811 and Senate Bill 555, which allow property owners to use the equity in their homes to finance the purchase and installation of energy improvements. The group suggested allowing PACE financing to be levied against a parcel and placed on the tax roll is not a public benefit analogous to fire, garbage, and other safety assessments that are typically paid for by property owners through special property tax assessments. Furthermore, because PACE financing is levied as a property tax assessment, the group voiced particular concern with the senior lien status PACE financing establishes. Senior lien status means that PACE liens take priority over existing mortgages. If a property owner defaults, PACE lenders would recover funds before mortgage lenders. Opponents of PACE argued that the senior lien status hinders property owners' ability to sell or refinance the property and can restrict access to certain mortgages and even jeopardize the property owner's existing mortgage because some lenders prohibit other loans or liens from taking priority over the first mortgage, and this can result in an automatic default. Finally, the groups opposed to PACE claim that PACE providers actively engage in quote-unquote predatory lending practices, alleging price gouging, above market interest rates, and inadequate disclosure of the PACE repayment agreements. In juxtaposition, the PACE providers and local contractors dispute the claims made against their respective organizations. With regard to AB 811 and SB 555, the PACE providers argue that energy and water conserving upgrades pursued by property owners are in every sense actions that provide a variety of public benefits, including reduced utility bills and overall impact on the electrical grid and public water systems, significant local workforce development for contractors and other trades who install the energy improvements, and allowing property owners to benefit from state law, which offers additional consumer choice and is meant to improve access to energy upgrades at no upfront cost to the property owner. Proponents of PACE also dispute concerns over the senior lien status of the PACE assessment, noting that since 2010, there have been more than 140,000 property owners who have used PACE throughout the state to finance an upgrade, and no lender has found the PACE assessment to be an act of default on the mortgage. In addition, PACE providers argue that before signing a PACE financing agreement, homeowners receive a disclosure that they may need to pay off the PACE assessment at the time of sale or refinance. On the legislative front, Assembly Bill 2693, known as the PACE Preservation and Consumer Protections Act, was signed into law by Governor Brown in September 2016 and went into effect January 1, 2017. The bill creates an industry-wide framework for PACE financing loans that aims to educate consumers on terms and is modeled after the federal mortgage Know Before You Owe form. A copy of the form is included in your board package as Exhibit B. The state of California also created a $10 million PACE loss reserve program to compensate mortgage lenders if a foreclosure or a forced sale attributable to a PACE lien occurs. To date, no lending institution has made a claim to the state, as there have been no reported losses due to PACE assessments. In addition, Senate Bill 242 is currently making its way through the legislative process and was recently passed in the Senate. If adopted by the Assembly and signed into law by the governor, SB 242 would further enhance consumer protection throughout the state by establishing statewide underwriting standards that include determining whether a property owner has the ability to pay the PACE assessment. PACE financing is currently based primarily on the available equity in a home rather than a property owner's creditworthiness. Under SB 242, program administrators would be prohibited from communicating to contractors the maximum amount for which a property has been approved to prevent price gouging. In addition, if a property owner is experiencing economic hardship and obtains forbearance from their mortgage lender, the PACE program administrator would be required to also provide payment forbearance to the property owner. SB 242 would also require program administrators to report to their sponsoring public agency, at least annually, important financial and environmental benefits, including the number of homes financed, project amounts, default and delinquency statistics, estimated energy and water savings, energy produced, and number of local jobs created, among other metrics. During the stakeholder meeting, the PACE providers proposed to pay for an independent third-party auditor to offer reassurance that consumer protections are in fact being offered and applied to all PACE transactions taking place in Kern County. The stakeholder meeting lasted roughly 2 hours, with the realtors reiterating at the end that the only satisfactory solution was to terminate the PACE program altogether in Kern County. As it stands now, staff has identified potential actions your board may wish to consider regarding this item. Number one, although SB 242 is still making its way through the legislative process, your board may direct staff to amend the existing PACE resolutions with a participation agreement. Exhibit C of your board packet identifies several safeguards similar to those established in SB 242 that would create a more robust set of consumer protections and hold PACE providers to a higher level of accountability here in Kern County. Please note that this is not an exhaustive list and that the language can be amended and should be subject to further discussion and input from all stakeholders. Number two, allow the legislative process to unfold and determine a best course of action once there is definitive direction provided by lawmakers. Number three, as requested by local groups opposed to the PACE program, your board may wish to rescind all existing resolutions and end the PACE program in unincorporated Kern altogether. Number four, keep the status quo and allow the PACE programs to continue operating in their current capacity. Number five, refer staff to find another alternative. This concludes staff's prepared comments. We're available to answer any questions your board may have.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brown and Mr. Alsop, for conducting that stakeholder meeting and for your good report that you have provided to us. I'll ask if any of the board members have any questions for staff before I go to the audience. Okay, seeing none. The way we're going to do this is we're going to do pro and con. So first I'm going to hear from folks who support the PACE program and then from folks who oppose the PACE program. The PACE proponents provided a list of about 15 people, is that right, clerk? 15 or 16 people who wanted to make comment? Okay, 20. Did that grow since I looked at it? Okay. So I think there's probably about an equal amount on the side of folks that are opposed to the program. And so I'm thinking we'll do 45 minutes aside. I'm going to put up the timer for 45 minutes aside, and ask that folks try to adhere to about a 3-minute time limit so we can get through everybody, 2 to 3 minutes per speaker. Ask you try not to repeat the comments made too much by folks before you, and then we'll do a 5-minute rebuttal period, and then we'll return to the board and see what happens. We're going to start with folks that are in support of the PACE program. Okay, and so we'll start the 45-minute clock. We ask that you state your name, and if it is one that is difficult for us to figure out the spelling, I might ask you to spell it. So please proceed. Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Chris Morgan, M-O-R-G-A-N. I'm a homeowner over in the Kern City neighborhood, over in the central part of Bakersfield. Basically, I'm semi-retired. I was 40 years in finance administration and sales. I'm still a notary that I've had my commission for 12 years. I've been involved with probably over 2,000 different loans with notarizations, everything from reverse mortgages to HELOCs to you name it. My house was built in 1962, so it was 55 years old when I bought it. It had never been touched as far as any upgrades. I wanted to end up by getting some stuff upgraded besides the fact that I had to gut and bring up to modern times the entire interior. And essentially, the financing that was available at the time for me was either I could pay cash for these upgrades I wanted to end up by doing on the outside as far as energy efficiency. I could sit there and spend 3 months trying to get a HELOC or whatever else. I could sit there because I've got about $70,000 in unused on credit cards with those wonderful letters that come by every month that says you too can have 0% for about a year. After which point, you know what happens with the perfect credit, you're going to end up by paying close to 24%. The other thing that came up was the Hero Finance program, which was reasonably priced. It was spelled out. The whole thing about it, and I re-looked at my paperwork because of all of this negativity that seems to come with this program, is that it is an option for us homeowners, purely an option. And the nice thing about it is I looked on there, and there was no paragraph stating that only Hero could do my improvements. And the other thing I couldn't find in there is nowhere did it state that I had to take the highest bid. So by the caveat emptor, if everybody would get 2 or 3 bids, the same as I'm sure most people do when buying a major appliance, TV, etc., you generally try to get your best deal, which I did. I was very happy the fact that they do still screen the contractors. So everybody and every contractor out there may not be perfect, but you know something? You're able to review it. The whole thing with these everybody trying to come out with increased regulations and rules and all that is that it's like the original commandments handed down on Mount Zion. There were 10 of them. Well, we now have over 300,000 federal regulations and rules right now, 20,000 alone just for gun ownership. So in our brilliant wisdom, we're always looking at a way to do like a patch on whatever the program is. I really feel that the program should go on, let the state and the marketplace and everything like that, if there are corrections and refinements need to be done, let that happen. Private industry is very good at setting that type of stuff up, and government isn't. So that's basically it for me. I would ask that you please actually just set it aside and let the status quo go and follow what the state's doing as far as it goes with the new regulations and things they're doing, and then address the issue at a later time. But as a homeowner, 100% was happy, and I was able to put about $20,000+ back into the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Runyon, R-U-N-Y-A-N. I am here as a supporter of the PACE program. I am a resident of the 4th District, a retired teacher living on a fixed income, and a 4th-generation Bakersfield resident. I am in no way affiliated with either HERO or the PACE programs, and the opinions I express here are primarily my own. I've been a satisfied PACE customer since the middle of 2015. I firmly believe that the option of having the PACE program available to the citizens of Kern County enriches our county and gives our residents an additional choice. In 2015, I was researching options for replacing my shake roof and my windows in my Kern City home. A friend recommended a PACE Hero program. I had never heard of PACE Hero. I diligently researched the PACE Hero program, contacted the PACE program in San Diego area, had several lengthy, informative, and extremely professional conversations with them. I found that the PACE program option was the best choice for me. The Hero rates were reasonable. Funding being attached to my property taxes was well and completely explained and best fit my needs. Interviewing various PACE program contractors was not difficult. I got to pick and choose who I wanted. The projects were carried out in a timely, orderly, and professional manner, and the work was excellent, finished exactly on time. The fact that no contractors are paid until the Hero customer is completely satisfied with the completed job was an additional plus. I continue to recommend the PACE program to many friends in Kern County as a viable option. Although the PACE program may not be the best option for everyone, it may well be the best option for many. And that option needs to be kept in Kern County for our citizens to consider. When I learned that there was a movement afoot to remove the PACE program option from Kern County, I was shocked. Why? Yes, there are always problems, glitches, and individual situations, unsavory persons on all sides, and unfortunate results. However, those are most definitely in the minority. Why punish everyone in the area by taking away an outstanding alternative? It is the client's responsibility to do their homework, research the possibilities, understand what they are signing before they sign any loan agreement with anyone. It's on them. And I don't know, or I didn't understand, after all things have been said and done, is not an acceptable excuse if problems arise. What I would ask of the Kern County Board of Supervisors is that the PACE program remain in their area as an additional option for citizens such as myself, who have found that those options are the best to fit their needs. No program is perfect. There is no one-size-fits-all. However, having a variety of options is of great value to everyone in Kern County. I thank you for your time and consideration. I'm going to give Mrs. Kraus a letter that I wrote to the Bakersfield City Council and Board of Supervisor, and I spoke with City Council a couple of weeks ago when they had their hearing. Also on here is a op-ed item that was presented to the Californian for publication. They've chosen not to publicize that yet, but it's here for perusal.
Thank you, Ms. Runyon. Who'll be next, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Bert Alton, and in 2009, my wife passed away, and I owned 2 homes at the time, and I ended up having to sell one, but I had to renovate the other. And I had called Mr. Lanier with Northwest Exteriors because I had done work before with Northwest. And Mr. Lanier came over, and I needed some new doors and windows. And at that time, I was in bankruptcy from my wife's medical. And I knew at that time I couldn't afford to go out and get a loan to have these doors and windows and stuff put in. And Mr. Lanier had explained the Hero program to me. And I got the price of the windows. And I went and done the homework and done the math. I think as a homeowner, it is up to me to sit and figure out whether I can consume that loan or not. And so I had done the math, and I had called Mr. Lear back up, came out and said, okay, let's go ahead and do it. It's still the homeowner's responsibility to do the homework on this. And it's a great program. I would hate to see the program cut or lost, because people like myself who are on fixed income can use that. I don't have deep pockets like a lot of people, but I do try to maintain my home, and this is just another way that I can do that, and it's an option that I can do that to fix my home. And I would really hate to see the program cut. It's a fantastic program. A lot of people can use it. And I appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. And thank you for your service.
These are my reading glasses. My name is Marvin Dean. I'm not a part of the stakeholders group. I didn't attend that. I'm not on anybody's list. I'm here speaking for my association, the Kern Minority Contractors Association. We've been kind of following this in the newspaper and hearing about it. We didn't know whether we were going to take a formal position, but some of my members approached me and asked that I come in and put our comments in the public record. Before I wanted to get some background, I got the staff report, this letter that he read from, dated June 13. And I think you guys did an excellent job. You laid it all out. And I want to start with paragraph 4 that really sums it up. Paragraph 4 starts with, the property owner participation in the PACE program is a choice and a completely volunteer. That sums it up for me right there. It's not being forced on anybody. It's not anybody that don't want to. And what I thought about before I read these recommendations that you all are going to be before you, is 5 of them. I'm going to tell you what I think would work here. I thought that the only thing ought to be done, if we do anything, is do more public education, so that the public is going to be required to get 3 contracts, bids, be aware of what they're signing before they sign it, do their due diligence. Like these other speakers spoke before me, I think they're an excellent example that the program worked for people that take the time and educate themselves on the process. But some people may not do that, but maybe build into the program that you can put that layer in there, some more public education, so buyer beware of. But because some people don't do their homework, you should not penalize those people that do their homework and feel like this program is a valuable program for them, like the gentleman spoke a minute ago about his credit issues, and a lot of people are like that. Just to get right through the chase, the 5 items that your staff recommended to you on there is, the first one is to adopt stricter consumer protection. That could be did to more education, tweak it, deal with some of the concerns. So we would recommend you go with item 1 if you don't keep the program as written. And because the people have expressed some concerns, I think we ought to look at maybe tweaking it a little bit. But under no circumstances should we go for item 3, which would be completely to rescind the program. Because I think when the rest of the people speak, you're going to hear that those that are going to be speaking in support, that the program is needed here. So I did leave my remarks and written remarks for the CEA for you to have something in the record.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Tuttle. I'm a homeowner. Okay, thanks. And I have used the HERO program, and without it, I would have not had the work done in my home. It was the only option that worked for me in my personal situation. And when I had them come in to look at what I needed done, I was never asked, how much were you approved for? That wasn't ever a question. It was, what are your needs? And it didn't come close to what I was approved for. What I'm trying to say is, it was suiting my needs. I was not gouged. I was not persuaded. This was my personal choice for my home and my future to stay in my home and have it be cost efficient for me. And that's all I'd like to say, is that you consider keeping it, because everybody has a different story to tell, and mine is without it. I would have been suffering at this point with my home. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd ask if you folks are planning on speaking, if you could start making your way down, kind of maybe queue up a little bit in the aisle so we can move along quickly. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Hazel Solis, S-O-L-I-S. I'm a homeowner in Tehachapi. My husband and I used the HERO program to replace the windows in our home, which were 25 years old. We have nothing but great things. The program went great for us. The work went great for us. If we had not had the HERO program, we probably would not have been able to do that project. And it was good for us. My husband and I are both diabetic, and living in a home that is extremely warm is hard on your health. Since we had the windows done, we have a much more comfortable home to live in. It stays much cooler in the summertime and warmer in the winter. We do plan to use the program again after we pay part of this loan down to replace our forced air heating so that we can eventually have air conditioning. We have an air conditioner in our home, but it is original to the home, 25 years old. We do not use it because it is not efficient. So we spend our summers with ceiling fans and opening windows in the evening. But our new windows have made a huge difference. So I hope the program can stay around so that we have an opportunity to use it again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener and distinguished board members. My name is Glenn Bland. I've been serving the community here as a contractor in solar and air conditioning for 32 years. And I think a lot of what you're hearing is that PACE is an option. And it's one of many options that we have for customers to finance the purchase of a solar system. And I'll say solar system because that's primarily what we use it for. We demonstrate to our customers, we guarantee production on our systems, and we demonstrate to our customers how much money they will save and in what period of time. So we show them what the return on their investment is going to be. There are no surprises. Everything is transparent. HERO is the PACE program that we use most of the time. They also provide an extra, for me, I like it, with the reputation of Protect here in town. In addition to the building department inspector going out, there's another level of oversight with HERO, with the PACE program, because they call the customer to make sure that we've done exactly what we say we're going to do and that they're satisfied with the program. We have one price for our customers in solar, regardless of what finance mechanism they're using. Since PACE has come on board in Kern County and Bakersfield, we've increased our staff from approximately 50 to 70 employees, provide good living for a lot of folks here. Just in close, and I'll keep it brief, I think blaming any finance program that's gone through the scrutiny that PACE has gone through would be like blaming a rifle for a crime or blaming a vehicle for reckless endangerment. It's simply a tool. And I think when you start hearing complaints, I think if you get to the root of the problem, you're going to find that there's some unscrupulous business practices going on. And that's what we have the Board of Consumer Affairs and the Contractor State License Board for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bland.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Mintz, M-I-N-C-E. I am an installer for Northwest Exteriors. We do retrofit windows, doors, patios, and so forth. 6 years ago, well, actually 2008, when the market crashed, I was in a not real estate, but construction for different contractors doing remodel stuff. The bottom fell out of the market. I was lucky enough to get on in the oil fields and spent 6 years in the oil fields working my way up from the ground floor to a management position. And last year got laid off and was on unemployment for a period of time and worrying about how I'm going to make ends meet. And due to the PACE program, I was able to get hired on with Northwest and, you know, afford my bills and afford my family. I was able to bring my son on and work with me and teach him a trade and give him an opportunity to better himself in life and always be able to have some, you know, money in his pocket and able to fend for himself. Everything that I've seen from the PACE program on my end has been good. You know, as far as us putting in the windows and how grateful the people are that we're, you know, they're doing it for them, seeing the difference in what we do in the windows, from taking out the old windows and standing in front of them when it's 95 degrees outside and you're sweating. Once you put our windows in, it's just an acclimate temperature from what's inside. I believe the PACE program is a choice for people. It's an opportunity for those who may not be able to qualify for other type of lending to be able to make these improvements on their home. And I know my job depends on it. As you can see from my attire, I work for a living. I had to pull off my job today to come down here and voice my opinion for the people that probably aren't thought about, and that's the guys like me that work for a living and depend on PACE to put a roof over our families' heads, to pay for our bills and live and not have to go and find another job. And if the PACE program goes away, myself as well as many other guys out here with dirty shirts on are going to be looking for other jobs and stand on the unemployment line. So I think that the PACE program is essential for guys like me in our business to be able to provide for our families. I know I can't go back to the oil fields and look for work because there's nothing out there still. I just would like to voice the opinion of the working man and would like for you to keep the program, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Council members, my name is Ben Dominguez. I'm the owner of Oasis Air Conditioning. That's Dominguez. Before offering the PACE program, I used it myself to make sure that it was easy, that it was fair, that they were upfront, there was no awkwardness, and I did a water conservation project in my own yard, and I was pretty happy with it. So I certainly wouldn't jeopardize our 50-year-long history of good service to this community by trying to take advantage of homeowners. We have been able to add some staff. More importantly, we've been able to keep the staff that we have a little bit busier. It's helped us take the seasonality out of our business. But you know what, we've done, I think we're approaching about 150 customers that have chose to use the PACE program. I look at it as a tool. In our toolbox, we have a variety of tools. And it's a tool that we have available for financing. And just like any other tool, if it's used properly, everybody wins with that tool. So I just urge you to let the homeowners make the choice and keep the PACE program around. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board. Hi, my name's Laura Booker, B as in boy, Ooker, and I moved into the great county of Kern in 2002. My father bought a home in the middle of an orchard, and my husband and I and my father moved into it. And my father since passed, and my husband passed sooner, and so anyway, I'm a widow. So when the home was in my family's trust, took it out of the trust, and I said, well, now I'll go get fire insurance, insurance on the home. And there was not one insurance company in California that would cover me because I had a shake roof. So I went, there were several companies trying to help me, but none of them could give me fire insurance. So I made a deal with the local fire first responders and the Kern Bureau of Fire, the County Fire Prevention Bureau, is it? And found out what they need to fill a truck, what kind of gallonage and for what duration do they need. And I talked the surrounding farm into putting a valve on one of their 1,000-foot wells. They had sunk 3 of them within a half a mile of me in the previous year. Consequently, my well was dry. Be that as it may, I was safe because the farmer helped me and the fire providers helped me. So then I went ahead and started looking for options for what I needed to do in this home, which was built in 1951. And one of my friends, who is one of these great contractors, I'm telling you, I can't say enough about the contractors that I have dealt with. I've actually dealt with 3 of these contractors, 2 of them within PACE program, one of them earlier. And, you know, I heard this whole thing characterized at the city hearing a couple weeks ago as predatory lending. And I just have to tell you, it is anything but predatory. Everything was described in full detail, fully disclosed to me so that I understood what the heck I was doing and so that I could figure out, could I make these improvements? Well, good. So I got what I needed. I since have been able to get fire insurance because I got a new roof. I got R49 insulation. I got solar panels. My $400 power bill went to $10. So that a couple months ago, when my best friend of 45 years, who was now my roommate, passed away and I had hospice in my home, I was able to keep that situation in a safe environment and keep her comfortable, keep all the care providers, you know, comfortable and well. And when the guys worked on my home, I had no water. They helped me. I couldn't provide restrooms. I couldn't give them drinking water. You know, they all come with water to drink, but they sent out a porta potty. I got to use it, you know. And anyway, so it really saved my life. This whole deal improved my quality of life in a fashion that I would not have been able to perform on my own, under my own auspices. So I really beseech you to continue this program as is. It is it's a lifesaver. That's what I would say. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Booker.
Thank you.
Okay. Need to try to move more quickly here. We're down to 17 minutes.
Hi there, my name is Matthew Martin. So about a year ago, I purchased a property that had a solar lease on it from Solar City. And at the time of obtaining my mortgage, I also had to qualify for a solar lease. I said, well, what if I don't want it? Well, then you can't buy this property. I said, well, that's interesting. So at the same time of qualifying for this mortgage, I also had to qualify for a solar lease, and it was a blessing that I was able to do so. Now, with my solar lease for the next 20 years, I'll pay $200 a month, 25 years actually. And I'll never own this system, so it'll never add value to my home. So over 25 years, I'm going to pay $60,000 by the time the lease is up. And then, thank you, Elon Musk, I will have the opportunity to purchase a 25-year-old system for an additional $45,000. So at the end of having this solar lease, I would be paying $105,000 for an old system at this point. Now I want to move on to, in contrast, I am currently in the middle of purchasing a property that happens to have a PACE solar system on it. So I sat down with my realtor. I knew it from the very beginning of going through this home. And I said, hey, this is tremendous, because now I'm going to walk into a property where the electricity bill prior to them installing the PACE solar system in 2014, their electric bill averaged $650 a month. Okay, after the PACE solar system was put on, their bill is now $600 a year, averaging $50 a month. So in addition, the solar system adds value to the property, unlike my other purchase, because it's installed and it's owned, it is not lease. We negotiated a price, I came up a little bit and they came down, and we have a deal, just like any other real estate deal out there. PACE is a program that affords middle, low, and upper income families with struggling credit scores the same opportunities that are available to the wealthy, by allowing them to take off the heavy burden that PG&E has placed on this community and this nation. The difference here is the eligibility to eliminate or nearly eliminate one's PG&E bill is not based on an A+ credit score, but rather the equity someone has in their very own home. With constant regulation that is being passed that greatly improves these safeguards, crystal clear disclosures, and LTV loan-to-value allowance caps that prevent someone from going underwater, there is no reason that PACE should be discontinued here in Kern County. Under Proposition 13, which we passed in 1977, which was officially named the People's Initiative to Limit Property Taxation, we limited our property tax, but what's interesting about this is it's actually not true. When you look at and you take a closer look at your property tax bill, it's actually about 2.5%. Why is that? Because a majority of voters have chosen nearly every election cycle to assess new bonds and measures that are paid for by our taxes for the good, the greater good of the community. And if that's the case, why shouldn't somebody be able to use the equity in their own home, supervisors? Their own home. If they are protected, if the state legislature and the federal government is protecting and constantly making improvements to this program, why should we not allow the constituents in this county the opportunity to take advantage of this wonderful program for the benefit of their own family? Please, I urge you, do not rob this community of the opportunity to improve their life based on a few people that have had a bad experience. The disclosures are clear, and people know what they're signing up for. There's over 3,000 success stories of PACE here in Kern County alone. I ask that you keep it alive in Kern County. This is based on the principles of the free market, which is what this great nation was founded on. And I ask you to please keep this program in place and allow low-income, middle-income, and even upper-income families the opportunity to have their American dream, which includes their home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How many more speakers do we have in the proponent side? Show of hands, one. Oh, like we're going to make it. Perfect. Please proceed.
Mine will be short. Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener and the council. My name is Rick Montoya. I'm the president of BSW Roofing and Solar. I'm a lifelong Bakersfield resident. My company has been in business in Bakersfield since 1942, so we hit 75 years this year. We have over 40,000 satisfied customers in this area, and I have 75 employees who have families. They're your neighbors, they're our neighbors, they pay taxes, and I have 20% of my work is with the PACE program. If I was to ever lose PACE, I'm going to be losing employees, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to save my company's employees. I'm here to save the people that won't have the opportunity to use PACE if this goes away. There's nothing wrong with this program. I actually have a PACE program on my own house. Now, if there was anything predatory about it, do you think I would have it on my own house? I have nothing but praise for the association, the people that work for it. They help us on a daily basis. They help our customers. They ride along with us and they tell us they'll help the customers if ever they have any needs. This is something that should not go away. All I can say is if everybody has an opportunity to make a choice, that's all that we're asking for, is a fair and level playing field. The other portion, I'm not sure exactly where it all comes from or where it stems from, but I can tell you from personal experience that the PACE program is a very good program, and I hope it stays. Please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mr. Montoya, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, board members. My name is Scott Gurnett, Gurnett. I represent Divine Power USA. We are a local Bakersfield solar contractor. We employ about 30 installers, and about 40% of our residential business is financed through the PACE products. We have used the PACE program to help firefighters, police officers, school teachers, and yes, realtors buy solar systems from our company through the PACE program. I have also been a licensed realtor and a licensed mortgage banker, and I do understand the issues that they have with the PACE program. It does take a little bit more effort on their part. They have to ask a few more questions and they have to dig a little bit deeper. Hopefully these disclosure issues are going to be solved with the new rules that are out there. There's always going to be a small percentage of contractors that are going to overcharge customers. There's also going to be a small percentage of homeowners, customers, that are going to abuse credit, no matter where that credit comes from. So I don't believe it's a wise idea to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think this program has a lot of very good features that are helping a lot of good people make good, sound decisions. So who is it that's abusing PACE? How is it that we got to this point where there's so much controversy about it? I see hundreds of bids a month when I'm out selling solar systems, and it always seems to be the installers that are coming from other counties, and they send these sales teams into our city and into our county, and they're pushing that one-stop close, and they get into the customer's house, and they push and they push and they push, and they won't allow that consumer to go out and get competitive bids. They use every trick in the book to try to get them to sign up that night. And I think that is where these abuses are coming from. It's from contractors that push their sales force too hard, that are looking for the one-stop close. I believe it's and they're trying to do this so quickly, they're not fully disclosing all the caveats that go along with the program. So if those issues could be corrected, I think this is a wonderful program, and I believe that we should keep it going. I think you made the right decision when you brought it to Kern County, and I think you'll be making the right decision if you keep it here in Kern County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gannett.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, fellow board members. My name is Frederick Thomas. I'm a lifelong resident of Kern County, and I'm also a PACE and Hero user who's very satisfied, so I will try to keep this very short. You're going to have heard a lot of testimonials in favor, and you will hear some against the program. I'm not going to go over that. I will say that my information is that there's been approximately 4,000 installations with PACE and Hero here in Kern County. And of those, approximately less than 200 have been problems, from minor to major. That's almost a 95% success rate. And I would ask all of you to consider, if you had something that was working for you 95% of the time, would you throw it out? The problems that I'm hearing, there's nothing technically wrong with the program. The problems that I'm hearing are nothing that administrative corrections can't fix. And I would hope that you guys would look at that, come to that conclusion, and do those corrections. PACE is for the most part for the middle and lower class constituents of your county, of your districts. And I would ask you to consider this. Power bills are not going to go down in the next 4 or 5 years. In fact, with the retirement of Diablo Canyon coming up, with the constant, even with just the rate of inflation that must be used, and God forbid if there's any major problems with PG&E, power rates are going to go up and probably go up steeply in the next few years. If you eliminate PACE, you condemn your constituents to those high power bills. There are other programs, yes, but they're not as easy, and there's, in fact, in what I've seen, some of them are more complicated and more prone to abuse. So I would ask you to consider that and keep the program and correct it if possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Dustin Rylick of Renovate America's Hero Program and Brian McCarty of Renovate America's Hero Program. I wanted to start by just simply rattling off a couple of numbers for each of you. The gentleman before couldn't have said it better. This is for the greater good of your community. We've had so much success with the program. You've heard from some homeowners. You've heard from contractors that are growing their businesses. This has been a boon to the economy to be able to actually job stimulate economic growth and be able to help your homeowners to better their properties. We've had 170 homes out of over 4,000 that have hit the MLS, and those are the ones that we're probably talking about here today. Those are properties that have hit the MLS, and over 50% of those have already sold and so forth on the marketplace, in the marketplace. Were there challenges with them? Most likely there was a little bit more due diligence that had to go into that. Absolutely. But do you throw away the baby with the bathwater? No, you don't. 99% of Kern residents are happy with what they're doing. We've changed a lot of things about the program. AB 2693 went into place that created a lot of disclosures. And in your packet, there's a yellow or white folder that we put in front of you. The left folder insert has a 4-page document that has disclosures that are here before you, and I wanted Brian to tell you because he helps to train all of our contractors here locally on all those different things that actually go into that presentation. We don't have time to go through it right now, but I definitely want to be able to share that information with you. Our company, what we have done is we have really made modifications. We have 550 of our largest contractors in the state. 80 of them have been removed from our program because of the way they were doing business, the way they were operating their business, the way that they weren't presenting properly, and the way they weren't responding to your homeowners. 23 of those contractors have done business here in Kern County at one point or another, and they're gone. They're out of the program. They're not available to PACE. PACE as an instrument is no longer part of their repertoire. So we want to make sure that you understand that the public-private partnership means everything to us as a provider of PACE services for your homeowners. For those 99% of people that are happy with the program, please keep PACE available to your constituents. And I'm going to let Brian talk a little bit since he's local.
Hi, my name is Brian McCarty. I've lived here for 10 years. I live in District 4, Supervisor Couch. I've been with the HERO program since November of 14. I've been on the ground. I've trained hundreds of contractors. I've met hundreds of homeowners on training ride-alongs. You did the right thing 3 years ago. The program is working as you intended. It's created jobs. It's created energy-efficient products for homeowners to take advantage of to lower their bills and be more comfortable in their homes. I can just say with certainty that in the 2.5 years that I've been here, I have never received a phone call from either a contractor or a homeowner who told me that they had trouble selling their house or could not sell their house. That's just the way it has been. So I wanted to relay that to you, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I wanted to reiterate one more thing. On page 3 of those documents, it's very important that they go through it very thoroughly and they take a look at all of the different disclosures, and they must initial next to all of those disclosures. This is a requirement in the state legislature that this has to happen under AB 2693. And there's more legislature that's moving through SB 242 that will shore up more consumer protections, and all PACE providers are 100% on board with any protections for your constituents. Thank you.
I'm Don Lanier, and I run a remodeling company here in town called Northwest Exteriors. Probably don't have time to say everything that I
Go ahead.
had
That's right.
prepared.
All out. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. The county voted in PACE to create jobs, update the homes in the community, and improve the quality of life for our homeowners. There is no dispute that we have accomplished that. You know, I have heard all the rhetoric about the PACE causing homeowners to lose their homes, yet I haven't seen one case that the PACE itself has caused a foreclosure. But let me tell you what will cause people to lose their homes. That's losing their jobs. That's a really very, very real scenario. My company went from 8 employees to 30 employees because of the PACE programs. And now I'm going to have to face the possibility of having to lay a lot of my hardworking employees off. Several of them you heard today, or a couple of them you heard today, and they came from the oil fields because of layoffs. We lose this PACE program, they lose their jobs. Where are they going to go from here? Heard the realtors talk about some of the home improvements that are financed by PACE. Doesn't really create any real value or benefit to their homes. I find this absurd. Why is it, if they really truly believe this, why do they advertise it in their listings to create more value to the home and make it more sellable? I've also heard, and they've said this many times, that we target low-income, low-educated citizens. For one, that's a direct insult to our citizens and your constituents. Are they saying that they're not educated, not smart enough to understand about 3 to 5 pages of a very clear document from PACE, but they are smart enough to understand a big, thick stack, probably about 1 foot pages of documents that it takes to purchase a home? And kind of fast forward to this, but I just ask you guys to please listen to the facts, base your decision on the facts, and you will see that PACE is good for our community, our jobs, our homeowners. This is the United States of America, and we should have the ability to choose which financing is best for us. And here's something to really consider too. When a homeowner's air conditioning is broken down in the middle of the summer and needs to be replaced, they don't have 6 to 8 weeks to go to a bank and get an appraisal and then see if they even qualify. They need it immediately, and people die in 100-degree weather without air conditioning. That's real. And PACE can provide this opportunity for them to get it fixed. The city council member, Andre Gonzalez, he summed it up pretty well at the budget and financing meeting a couple weeks ago. He said, when the lenders, appraisals, and realtors caused the housing market to crash because of unethical practices, they didn't get rid of them. They tightened it up. PACE has tightened these things up. And going back to the uneducated and the low income, the people that we talked about, we have done business with lenders, lawyers, teachers, appraisers, and yes, realtors. If they think that it was that big of a deal, you think they would understand and know that this is a bad program. They still use it. Please keep this program. It's a good program. If it goes away, the realtors will still go about their merry way and still sell their properties. But the real working, hard-class people that are surviving day to day on their budget, slim budget, they rely on it, and they're going to lose their jobs and the ability to feed their family. Please keep this program. It's a choice.
Thank you, Mr. Lanier. Okay, so that concludes the folks who are proponents. We will go now to the folks that are in opposition. We'll set the clock. Let's go 48 minutes because they got a little more time. Okay? Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And we will have a 5-minute rebuttal period. So if you didn't speak and you have something you want to say, remember that. It's coming up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members, supervisors, chairman. There's a lot of passion, obviously, in the room about this topic.
I'm sorry. Could you introduce yourself, please?
What was next?
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Sherry Anthus.
The clerk tells me, and I
Sherry Anthus, A-N-T-H-E-S. I'm currently the Vice President of Operations for Coldwell Banker Preferred Realtors, but I was born and raised here. Both of my parents retired from the county. My dad spent 36 years in the Kern County Sheriff's Department. My mother, 24, in various departments before she retired as a Superior Court clerk. I have deep roots in this county. I have lived in Arvin, Lamont, Glenville, Boron, and Bakersfield. And I care greatly about what I see happening to my friends, my family, and my neighbors. Today I'm here as a spokesperson for the Bakersfield Association of Realtors. I'm here on behalf of the leadership and the realtor member. we are concerned about what we see happening in our community. Kern County has one of the most affordable homeownership rates in the entire state of California, and it is our position that PACE is a direct threat to that affordability. So how did PACE get into Kern County? The bigger question is, it's certainly not what we originally anticipated it to be. If we go back years, we didn't voice an opposition, and I know we didn't ask the right questions. So part of the issue that we have is the affordability as it's tied to our property taxes. Property taxes, as you've already heard, thank you staff for pointing out that we believe our property taxes should be for the public good. And in the public good, what we mean is it should benefit everyone as a whole, equally and equal measure. Garbage, water, schools. And I understand a homeowner wanting to do improvements in their property, and I understand windows and roofs, but I do believe that we have seen things like reflective stucco paint and artificial turf. We even know a guy who put an entire RV pad in and claimed that was drought tolerant because he took some grass out. I think that the program has exceeded far beyond a benefit for the public good on the taxes. So why are the property taxes such a big deal? Why does that matter? It's all about being a super lien. And I want to make sure everyone understands the implications of a super lien. A super lien basically means it is superior to all others. It basically comes before everything else. It means that any other lien that existed on the property will now be subordinate to that. That means your first, second, a HELOC, anyone else has now been moved down. Can you tell I'm nervous? Okay. So our concerns and the reasons we believe that there are flaws with the PACE program. First of all, there's no financial oversight. There's no other government entity that makes sure that these programs actually meet the consumer protection. PACE lenders have been participating in predatory practices in which they have exceeded customary interest rates, inadequate disclosures, and they have encumbered properties far beyond their value. You've referred to several of the legislations that have come out. I want to tell you, first of all, we've heard reference to SB 2693, and that's true. That was a Realtor Party legislation that we put forth, but what I want you to understand is the main element of that was stripped out. It took out subordination. So what we ended up with was a very watered down version of what we initially expected to have put forth. Not that we aren't grateful for the additional disclosures, but in reality, they've been less than effective. Super lien status and the success of PACE is the most secure type of financing. It's default, short sale, and foreclosure proof. It's immune to inaccurate valuations or any negative equity. And in any of these scenarios, it will ultimately be made whole, even at the expense of the homeowner at subsequent liens. Our other concern is in regards to valuations. Flawed valuation mechanisms inflate the values of the property, resulting in encumbrances that exceed fair market value. We call these guesstimates. It's impossible to determine the market value of a property simply by relying on an automated system. There are too many other considerations that have to be taken in when you determine property value. For example, if you live in Bakersfield, you understand that Tevis Ranch is not the Greens, Campus Park is not the Oaks, and Grand Island Place is not Grand Island. Yet a computer doesn't know which side of White Lane or Ming Avenue you're on. It takes a physical inspection of the property, looking at what neighborhood it sets in and what other comparables in that market will bring the true value in. It's why we believe that an appraiser or qualified real estate professional and a physical visit to the property are crucial in determining the actual value. You've heard them talk about the fact we've had no defaults on these PACE liens, and that's true. because the default doesn't occur at the PACE lien level. It occurs at the first mortgage level. Most of us who have a house payment understand that we make a payment on the first of the month, PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That goes to the first mortgage holder who takes those funds, places them in an impound account, and then when they're due and payable, pays your homeowner's insurance or pays the tax collector. We do not believe that our tax collector should be the loan servicer or the bookkeeper for the PACE program. There's some big winners, obviously, in the PACE. And our opposition has very deep pockets, and they have really pulled out all the stops in trying to prevent us from exposing the deficiencies and negative impact of this program. The PACE investor, the Wall Street investor, is a winner. It is a no-risk, guaranteed paid off for them. Who else is a winner? The dishonest contractor. And I'm not talking about these gentlemen that I'm not talking about them. We're not concerned about the good guy. And there are some good guys. I'm not concerned about the people who do stand-up business. And I so appreciated what Glenn Bland said, that he has one cost, regardless of the financing mechanism, or the gentleman from Oasis. Absolutely understandable that there are good people within the program. Those are not the winners, because they do good ethical business regardless of the tool that they use. I'm talking about the dishonest contractor. The contractor who, within the confines of this system, can overcharge, can implement upgrades to the property that have no benefit or no financial offset to any cost. And we've seen them in the real estate world. There's no oversight to determine whether these unscrupulous people can come into our community and operate under the same confines that PACE allows our local contractor and good guy. Who else wins? The Western Riverside Council of Governments. First of all, they're the loan underwriter, and by the way, they receive all of our carbon credits. The PACE vendors. I again want to applaud those that have made genuine efforts to self-correct. And I think it's an important step in them recognizing the flaws that exist within the program. And I think many of them, because of our voice, have taken a look at how they operate and what they say and how they present the program. But the reality is the policy itself is where the flaw exists. There's no verification of a homeowner's ability to repay. There's no confirmation of the value of the property that they determine. There's no outside oversight that ensures the consumer protection. And there's no loss to the vendor or the contractor if the property goes into default. So who loses? We believe our Kern County tax assessor, who has been burdened with the responsibility for $18 to $35 per year per contract to be the administrator and loan servicer for the program. We also believe the current mortgage holder, whether again it be your first, your second, or your HELOC. Number one, because without their consent have been placed into a position of subordination to that super lien. Number two, they have now been placed in a greater risk of default should the homeowner not be able to make the higher payment. We believe the homeowner loses. The homeowner especially who's faced with selling their property within 2 to 5 years. It comes as a great shock to many to find that the upgrades that they've done to their home did not add value. The homeowner that's in the mid-range market who doesn't understand the questions to ask. The homeowner who is believing and trusting in a program that appears to be government endorsed and is listening to the marketing and sales pitch and is caught into a situation where they simply don't know what to do in their best interest. I respect the multiple bid dynamic, and I think that's viable, but I can tell you I've talked to dozens of homeowners who in retrospect wish they had done so, simply didn't understand they had that right. If you're a homeowner that's selling your property in the next 2 to 5 years, you're going to be surprised when you get your PACE lien payoff. First of all, the administrative fees, prepaid interest, and what it's going to cost to actually get out from under that lien shock most. And what we have found out is that they find that they're in a negative equity position. And who does this affect? Well, first of all, It affects what we call the move-up dynamic. For Bakersfield, it's very significant to a healthy real estate market. We need people to sell those income level homes, entry, first-time homebuyer level homes. They sell those and take that equity to move up, which creates a very healthy market for that upper range price point. When these homeowners are finding out that they are in a negative equity position, they simply can't move. They don't move, which stagnates that higher level and reduces the inventory for the entry-level market. We have a homeowner who is in price point A, crucial to that new buyer who needs to come into the homeownership arena and affordability. So let's talk about that buyer. The home buyer, I believe in Bakersfield, because of our affordability, it's a wonderful place to start that homeownership experience, but they are being priced out. First of all, if the lien is transferred, it becomes a monthly payment on the property tax, which is immediately added to the debt to income, which means a home buyer who qualifies for a $250,000 home based on their debt to income and payment immediately has that home price reduced if there is a PACE lien that they have to assume, because that PACE lien payment offsets their debt to income, and the quality of home that they can afford has now been reduced. Most appraisers are going to require that that be paid off. If that is the dynamic, it has to be paid off, the homeowner, and we have had this happen, the homeowner suddenly realizes they have to write a check to close the escrow, and the buyer is now out of the transaction. Why is it bad news for Kern County? First of all, we have discovered that you actually had several of the properties in Bakersfield were already in tax default, and yet they qualified for a PACE lien. That's the lack of oversight. If we ask, what was the dynamic that happened several years ago that added to that, or that led us into that subprime situation? It wasn't the good guy. It wasn't the ethical guy. It wasn't the honest appraiser. It was bad valuations that were manipulated by self-serving individuals with no regard for the negative consequences and no oversight to prevent that from happening. No verification of a third neutral party to substantiate the value. The lien was not dependent or sustained by the market value. No proof of the borrower's ability to repay, and the liens exceeded the market value of the property when it came time to sell. We've talked about jobs, and I appreciate everyone who presented the fact that their businesses have been blessed and increased by the PACE dynamic, who've had an option added that may be brought into that possibility of the new roof. And I don't want to discredit any of the previous speakers. I appreciate what the gentleman from Divine had to say, and I appreciate what Justin and the homeowners all had to say. But I want to talk about the people that I know. 1,980 plus people, realtors, work at our local association. I'm a small business owner. I have staff. I'm an independent contractor. I work with another 1,900 people who do the same. Each time we enter into a real estate transaction, we bring escrow companies, title companies, home inspectors, termite inspectors, handymen, all who play a role, the lender, the appraiser, all who play a role make their living through the process of a real estate transaction. We are business owners too. We have employees as well. There are brokers in Bakersfield, from the small broker to the large broker, who employ receptionists and transaction coordinators and other support staff. We're talking about thousands of people who are dependent upon feeding their families and making their living through the process of a healthy real estate market, through sustaining the ability for a homeowner to purchase a home when they qualify to do so, and more importantly, a seller's ability to sell their property and move on and either buy up or pay off their debt and move on with their life. And what we are seeing is that the PACE program in its current form, under its current policy, has the ability to create negative equity positions homeowners do not understand and have not been explained the impact of selling the property, and more importantly, are shocked when they find out the upgrade that they implemented in the home did not add enough value to pay off the lien. Wrap it up. So, I'm sure you're aware that we are not the only municipality that's having this conversation. And today is our day to make a decision. Today is our day to say that PACE in its current form is going to have to be changed in order for us to allow it to be presented to our community. So, SB 242 does not address the concerns that we have. The other legislation that has been put forth has been stripped down and does not reflect our needs and what our concerns are. On behalf of the Bakersfield Association of Realtors, I ask that you vote for your option 4, rescind the resolutions, force it back so that they can self-correct, and if they do bring it back, it's in a manner that has better implementation for our community. Thank you.
My name is Daryl Sparks. I'm a lifelong resident of Bakersfield. Been in the profession of real estate for almost 30 years. Never rose in opposition to any financial options in regards to home improvements. I take offense to saying that the realtors are somehow trying to dislocate workers. I think that's ridiculous. But we're here to protect consumers. That's why we're here. I run an office. I'm a broker manager of an office of 85 agents. I work for a company that has 350 agents. We are getting numerous reports, calls. I have agents coming in my office in regards to clients not being able to sell their houses. One thing we need to understand is that about 70 to 80% of the financing in Bakersfield and Kern County, okay, is conforming financing. That's FHA, okay, and that's Fannie and Freddie Mac, which is conventional financing. They do not allow subordination, okay, to that lien, okay? So what that means is that when someone goes to sell their house, and if they're fortunate enough to have the equity to sell, because you have to have the equity to sell to pay off the lien in order to get the financing, then you're only going to be somehow, if you have the equity, you can pay it off. If you don't, now you have a situation where 70 to 80% of the buyers are not going to look at your house. They can't buy your house because their form of financing will not allow it. So that's what we're really talking about. If Gary Crabtree was here, he would be more eloquent than myself. I'm passionate, but I'm not a numbers guy. But the numbers should fare out that this should be a major concern to all of you, okay, and your constituents. 80%. That's a high number, okay? Gary Crabtree would also say that 80% of the sales in Bakersfield and Kern County are below $300,000, which is conforming financing. So we're here to sound the alarm. We're not asking you to take away an option. We met 2 years ago with these PACE people and told them we need to fix the subordination piece. They said, oh yeah, we're working on that. FHA we'll get that worked out with them. We'll get that worked out with conventional financing. It did not happen, okay? It's 2 years later. They're still no closer to a remedy. This is not San Francisco. This is not LA. We have conforming financing here, okay? Our loan amounts are much less than those areas where they have jumbos and they have conventional non-conforming, which makes it easier for them to work within this program. So our concern is, going forward, we're gonna pay today or we're gonna pay down the road. Because if you kick this down the road and they don't resolve it, we are gonna have some issues, some major issues. So just imagine if 70% of the buyers going to your house cannot buy your house. Just put that into relevance. Also, I have spoken with some people in regards to the interest rates and the predatory lending piece. And there is no supervision. There is no oversight. And at this point, the interest rate that they tell these people that they're charging, with the prepayment penalties and all the other fees associated, are well above what they're quoting. I would suggest that you go back to the assessor's office and ask for a sampling of what those true charges are and have a real APR created, which would indicate what they're really charging. Okay, that's only fair, right? We have Frank Dodd, we have all these regulations that enforce that people totally understand what the amount is they're paying for the product. In some ways, this has none of that. They talk about it and they're reforming it, so what does that indicate? They do have problems. So I'm pleading with you today, look at Maricopa. The city manager says, no way, Jose, not happening. There are many people that are coming up, including our own association at the state level. In our buyer and seller advisory has a section devoted to nothing but PACE. It is a problem, okay? It isn't buyer beware. There's nothing to beware of. This program is flawed, okay? And I don't think the county or the city of Bakersfield should be responsible for fixing the problem by way of amending their product. Their product's flawed. And someday, we'll all be back here again if you approve this to go forward. I'm thinking sooner than later because things will start to happen. The market doesn't always go up. Fortunately, we're in a strong market right now. So I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Silvestro. My last name is Silvestro. And we had purchased a home, my husband and I, back in April 2015. And we inherited a HERO loan. So what happened was we had no knowledge of it. In December, we got a letter from our mortgage company saying your mortgage is $1,400 more a month. You have to pay this or else you lose your house. So that woke us up. We did our due diligence, found out that our taxes had gone up over $7,200 per year, and that we had to play catch up and pay all these taxes off. When I contacted HERO, they had pretty much told us that they couldn't do anything about it because it was now a tax issue. It was, within that realm. So we had contacted our escrow company, gone through, basically it took about 11 months and $11,000 out of pocket to get this resolved. We did have help from the escrow company, but basically it took $48,000 to pay off a $42,000 air conditioning loan. I had talked to a contractor that I use regularly and asked him what a 2-unit, the cost of a 2-unit air conditioning system for our 2,500 square foot home would be, and he said about $15,000, and they had taken out a loan for over $42,000. So at the end of this period, when they did finally get things paid off, they ended up with a $48,500 balance to close this loan, and I really don't want this to happen to anybody else. This was an extreme burden. We were lucky that we didn't get behind. We were lucky to hold on to our home. But I think I represent a lot of people in saying that we barely scraped by, that it was very difficult, and that we don't want to see this happen to other people. I have been interviewed by Channel 58 News, the Wall Street Journal, District Attorney's Office. This is a much bigger problem than what you see here. It is affecting a lot of people, and most of them are contacting their nearest connection, which is their real estate agent, or other people, because frankly, it's embarrassing. You don't want to come up and say, hey, I got into this mess and now I don't know how to get out. So I just, want you to know I don't want to see this continue as it is, and I think it really needs to have a closer look, and it needs to be re-examined, and people don't need to inherit these horrible bills. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Nick Ortiz. I represent the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Our organization is a trade association which represents 1,100 member businesses who collectively employ nearly 70,000 people across Kern County. We appreciate the opportunity to comment on the PACE program today And the Chamber, as the broadest business association in Kern County, represents members on both sides of this issue. And so when we looked at it and heard from both sides, we had to consider it very carefully before we crafted any position. And where we come down is that we definitely recognize that PACE is a job provider. It drives economic activity. And while the consumer issues that were highlighted are, frankly, they're not our issue as the Chamber of Commerce, I think everyone agrees that the good actors, as they've been termed, are doing what they can to self-police. And when it comes to local governments like yourselves, we recognize that the legislation doesn't really give you a whole lot of discretion. You can either turn it on or turn it off. You can't do your own regulations. So when we look at an issue, we must balance our desire to enhance good government, guard against obtrusive mandates from Sacramento, and promote local economic activity. So where we come down is that our concern is the super lien status and the mechanisms in place if the mortgage or taxes on a property send it into default. As you've heard from Ms. Anthis and from staff, the PACE program liens get a very beneficial position ahead of the mortgage lender. And then if that lender's not made whole, then through that state program, the burden falls on the taxpayers. So we recognize again that this is state legislation. And so one or more thing has to happen in order for us to continue to have a PACE program in Kern County. And what we support is the city and the county suspending your programs until such a time that either through future legislative reform, that legislative reform subordinates these liens to the first mortgage, or it provides you a little more discretion in terms of regulating the program locally. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment and appreciate you looking at this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz.
Members of the board, Michael Turnipseed representing Kern Tax. PACE is a tool that if used properly doesn't have any problems. If I had the ability to call Mr. Bland or Mr. Montoya and say, hey, I want a solar thing, you can do it for 6%, I have a lot of equity in a home, it's not a problem. But this morning, on your session this morning, your board proclaimed June 17 as Elderly Abuse Awareness. And you heard about the problems with the elderly in this county being taken advantage of by people. I'm not saying it's PACE, but there are people. There are innuendos that some PACE bad actors could be part of those. But you made that action today. Your staff told you there's a problem. You know there's a problem that has to be addressed. And I know people are addressing everything else. I'm going to cut another thing right to the chase that's not mentioned. If you pay your property taxes and something happens, you don't have an impound account with your bank, you have 5 years forgiveness. If you are using impound accounts with your bank, is it 90 days before you got to make good? That's something that I bet most consumers don't understand. You're looking at Mr. Yeah, if you don't pay your property taxes, you have 5 years to pay them and make them good, catch up in the rears. That's the law. Talk to your county treasurer about that. And I think that's a big thing. People use their impound accounts, they get the balloons, they can't pay it. The bank, who's collecting the money they got subordinated because of PACE, is collecting the money and then has to be the bad guy to foreclose on the home. There is a problem. So if there's any questions, if not, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Turnipseed.
Hi, my name is Melissa Dominguez. I am a homeowner here in Bakersfield. I was introduced to the program back in 2013 and got new windows on my home and doors because it was very badly needed. I was very aware and I did my homework and I was a good consumer about the whole situation. When the HERO program gentleman was in my home, we were trying to fill out all the forms. I had asked several times, will I have trouble refinancing my home? And the answer continuously was, no, you won't have a single problem refinancing your home. Well, back then the program was still fairly new here in Kern County, and here a few years later, I'm trying to refinance my home. And even my own lender won't touch this refinance. We have actively been trying for about 8 weeks now, and I have gotten a continuous, no, we don't deal with that, or they just won't even call me back. So our situation is in the sense that we are trying to refinance and pay off this HERO loan, and we're not being able to. So that's our problem, and I think that as the years are going to go on and people are going to start trying to do these things, there's going to be more issues like this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Scrivener, board members. My name is Jean Radsick, R-A-D-S-I-C-K. And without trying to rehash some of the information that you have heard and will continue to hear from some of my colleagues, I want to address some of the issues that I believe contribute to the overall problem of some of the constituents that are signing up for programs they do not necessarily understand. The discernment capacity that most of us will proclaim as buyer beware seems to have a diminished role as we age. I'm not casting aspersions. There's a tendency of a certain demographic to believe what they're told. They believe that they ask questions, but overall, they will not push someone out the door and say, oh, I'm going to get 2 more bids, because that's not the polite thing to do. I do understand and applaud the fact that some of the providers are getting phone confirmation that they're supposedly understanding what they're signing. But imagine, if you will, your grandmother sitting there and being asked, do you understand? Do you think that she's really honestly going to say no? Because once they say no, I don't understand, they're abdicating their decision-making capacity. My dad was a former policeman, a forgery detective, a business owner who went on to chair national organizations for his business, a good speaker and an intelligent man. But as they got into their 80s, they became easy targets. Why do you think that we periodically still see those warnings in the newspaper about elder scams and they fall victim to it? Why? Because they want to believe. They want to believe that people are good. If they're told that it's a government program, there's an immediate trust factor. Now, I know that they're not supposed to be telling people that it's a government program, but I'm telling you, I got 2 calls this week myself. And that young man was just as sure as can be that it was a government-sponsored program. And yes, ma'am, you can go to my website and you can see that it is a government program, and it doesn't cost you anything. As to the transactions that I have been involved with PACE liens, I have closed several, but only the ones have closed where they've had enough equity to pay them off. The one that I closed last week was a condominium. We're not talking high finance here, $80,000. The only clue that I had that we had some type of a lien on this thing was that Mr. Homeowner said that his air conditioning was being paid by the HOA. It's not likely. It wasn't on the taxes. So immediately call escrow. They pulled the preliminary title report, and lo and behold, it was not on the taxes, but in the prelim, we found that they had, in fact, last year signed for a PACE lien for the new AC unit, but it stipulated in there that it would not hit their taxes until 2017 or 18. So there was no way for me to preemptively find that information. The point is, this guy thought it was on his HOA. Now, this guy was in his 40s. It's not like he was old and decrepit and couldn't make a decision. And I know that isn't a nice thing to say, but the reality is this guy really didn't know that it was not on his HOA. So let me ask you, what do you think my responsibilities are when I'm working with a buyer? Should I encourage them to buy that property that has an additional $200 to $400 a month on their tax bill versus the one right next door, which doesn't have that? Where's my fiduciary responsibility to that buyer? Frankly, once I explain to them what it is, do you think they really want to buy that house and assume that additional responsibility, which they do have to qualify for? If you choose to put a PACE lien on your property, at this level, most people are seeing it through the brain of future earning years. Most of you have future earning years in front of you. But when you're looking at people that are
up in years, that's a different evaluation process. They're not seeing that. So I actually beg you to roll back this program, allow the providers to come up with a better program that does not include putting a lien on the property taxes as a superior lien to any other encumbrance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Gonzalez. I am co-owner of Cornerstone Mortgage. We are a local mortgage company here in Bakersfield, and we have seen definitely struggles from people that have walked through our door, whether they're trying to qualify for a purchase or it's a refinance. And mainly it all comes down to that, for us on the loan side, that superior lien position. So I've provided for all of you guys a printout from HUD, which is FHA, VA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac, where they all, in their mortgagee letter, state that they will not allow a loan to have a PACE mortgage lien against it. So that information, we have been successful in having a few come in, which they're lucky enough to have the equity to refinance their house. So there has been some success stories. And also, I think the energy efficiency in it is a good thing. But the way that the loan is put together and the predatory lending that's being absorbed by the consumer, which they don't know because it comes majority of the time at the time of the payoff of that loan, if they pay it off early, needs to be addressed and something needs to be corrected. Last week I had a homeowner that wanted to refinance their house because their payment went up over $400 a month. They can no longer afford that payment. After further evaluation of the loan and going through an appraisal process, the conversation that we ended up with them last week is that we were not able to refinance their loan because we didn't have enough equity in the home, where most rate and term refinances, if you're able to do it as a rate and term, requires it to be 95%. The only way you can prove that it was to do it as a rate and term refinance is if you can prove all the improvements were done strictly for energy efficiency. Otherwise, it's considered a cash out refinance where they would have to get the cash out, and then you're limited to an 80% loan to value. I ask that you guys reconsider this because I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg right now, where I'm finally seeing consumers coming through my door where this is affecting them because it's been 2 or 3 years. So I think if we continue with the program and the way it's structured, that we will see significant amount of foreclosed properties for people that can no longer afford their payment, because the lender is going to protect themselves, pay the property taxes, and pass that cost on to that consumer. If that impound account has a shortage in it, guess what? Now their payment's not gone $400, it's $800 more. PACE loans do not require income verification. The people that originate them are non-licensed origination. So please consider a couple of those facts before honoring the continuation of it. Thank you.
I'm Pete Pankey. I'm a professional taxpayer. The statement that PACE is not forced on anyone is about as inaccurate as you can get. It is being forced on the first trust deed holders, and it is being forced on taxpayers. So that gets my blood boiling. If you want to keep it, if you just put it behind the mortgage, then the whole problem goes away. Now, I understand that the program itself won't let you do that, so the only option then is to get rid of the damn thing. PACE is just a crony handoff. That's why these guys, you got to think about it. Why are these people up here, they're so adamant about you let this program grow, we'll all die. Well, it's because it's a crony deal. They get a special deal. If they had to just go under normal, I mean, there's no reason why the lenders couldn't come in behind the FTD if this deal was so good. But they won't do it because we stand up and collect the money for them. That's a real problem. I hope you guys got a copy of the letter I wrote, and I don't think that there's a point in my going through it, but just wanted to throw in a couple of extra things. If you don't have copies, I have
You can
copies.
provide one to the clerk, Mr. Benke, and then it'll be in the record.
Good afternoon. It's kind of a long day for all
Good
you guys,
afternoon.
isn't it? My name is Midge Jimerson, and I'm the 2017 president of the Bakersfield Association of Realtors. Our association has nearly 2,000 members, which include realtors, lenders, appraisers, escrow, and title companies, and more. According to the Kern EDC, if we combine the real estate industry itself and its supporting sectors, you'll see an annual impact of $82.3 million annually in Kern County. Because of PACE financing, our members and their clients have had hundreds of transactions disrupted. In addition to the unacceptable consumer issues before you today, I would like you to also consider the financial impact to each of our 2,000 businesses and the real estate industry as a whole. I'd like to take a moment to ask everybody who's here today that would like to ask the board to repeal PACE to please stand up. That includes realtors, homeowners, lenders. Thank you for standing.
Probably felt good.
They needed a break,
Yeah.
don't you think? So the question is, how many homeowners will have to lose their homes before this program is stopped in our community? The number should be 0. This is not about job creation. This is about the damage it is creating to homeowners and the neighborhoods in our community. The Kern County Board of Supervisors is in a spotlight position right now. The PACE program is creating many problems across our nation, not just in Kern County. And as somebody told you before, we've heard it up at the state of California, and we've heard it in Washington, D.C. Your board at this moment in time has the opportunity to take a lead stance for your community and the homeowners you serve and stop any further damage. Don't just patch it, repeal it. As realtors, we believe in growing our community and serving as the leading advocates of real estate, our members and the community we serve. We don't think anyone should have to lose their home for another person to have a job. We respectfully ask you to repeal the PACE program from our county. And I want to thank you for your time because it's been a long day.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Busby. I have a real estate team with Miramar International. In listening to all the different people speaking today, I wanted to bring some current bids. This is from a AC company. It was a 16 SEER, 1 unit, and they did some ductwork. The bid is $22,010. I just had 2 units put on my property, a 5-ton and a 3-ton, for $13,000. Here's another one. The property is 1,064 square feet, a tankless water heater, $11,000. This is what is going on. I know most of these contractors here, it's not them. You know, I know the roofing company, I know the solar, I know the AC company, it's not them. I have a client right now, we're putting his home on the market on Friday. He's getting a loan to pay off the PACE so it can be sold. We have to take care of the people. I've been practicing real estate for 26 years, a loan officer prior to that for 5 years. I started when I was 7 years old. And I've always taken pride in these realtors. The reason why they came today is because they're so passionate and they want to protect their clients. So when you see invoices and items like this that are taking advantage, do they work for some people? If you have a good, honest contractor and you have a person that will take care of it, that's fine, and they're not going to sell their property anytime soon. That's a if. Death, divorce, relocation, loss of job, or illness can create a sale. We don't want to take away their ability to sell their property. And like Sherry said, the move-up market, it stimulates everywhere. Thank you very much.
Just like home, I usually get only a couple of minutes and I have a lot more to say. It doesn't happen very often. I also appreciate the contractors here. I work with them. I know these people. They're honest. They're decent people. One of them made a comment that kind of offended me a little bit, was the realtors have, Glenn Porter, I'm sorry. You only gave me 2 minutes. Realtors have to ask a few more questions and have to dig a little bit deeper. I'd say the same thing about the contractors. I think they need to ask a few more questions. You can get loans without being qualified or oversight of a government organization in one of 2 ways: mama and dad or PACE. And what happens is, with the PACE program, they're not being pre-qualified and they are being sold things. One of the things that I started looking for, because I don't like to just have a problem, I like to find solutions as well. So I looked into what could we do to keep the job levels up and give people that can't afford it solar energy. I came up with a thing called grid alternatives. You can get your solar, if you're poor, for free. Absolutely free. It's paid by cap and trade, and yet nobody's talked about it yet. You have a household size of 1 person, you make less than $33,000. My mom. Easily. Matter of fact, she makes a lot less than $33,000. You qualify for a solar system for free. And there's other things that are available. PG&E has programs. So I've been researching that. There's solutions and there's jobs. We can have both. I think we should get rid of PACE.
Glenn Porter.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairman, members of the board, Romeo Agbalog, ROMEO, AGB, ALOG. I'm here on behalf of Kern Citizens for Sustainable Government, and I'm here to offer a few comments to support your board in consideration of the issue that's before you today. Our organization agrees with many of the arguments that were made in opposition to PACE, made earlier. But I'm coming at you today from a slightly different lens that I'd like you to consider this issue. Before I make my remarks, I'd like you to keep in mind a statement that we're all pretty much familiar with, which is, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. Now, with that said, many of us in the room here today are familiar with the chain of events that occurred in the late 2000s that set forth a world collision in the financial market, and that was the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. And while the issue is different than the one you face today, I see that there's some striking resemblances between the two, in the sense that you have Wall Street bundling loans, putting them out for consumption, backed by credit default swaps and things of that nature. But what happened is that you have the government involved, and is providing this false sense of security for folks who are getting somebody at their doorstep saying this is a government program and this is all good. Well, every time the government gets involved in something, and this is where Kern Citizens' concern lies, is that it doesn't always turn out the way you want it to. And going back to the similarities, I think it was said earlier that you have government playing this role of loan servicer and bookkeeper, and that's a concern to our organization. And ultimately, like the meltdown that happened in the late 2000s, we're fearful of something like that happening in the future, which subsequently injures government because your property tax assessment value dropped down. So keep those things in mind as you move forward through this process. And then once again, remember that if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably isn't. Thank you.
Thank you. How many more speakers are there? We have 2? Okay. I'll add on to the rebuttal time for the okay, 3. I'll add on to the rebuttal time for the proponents then, and that way we'll make it even. Okay.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. I am, my name is Rick Dossie. I'm a homeowner here in Bakersfield. I've lived here for a little over 20 years. Bought my house back in November of 2014. Decided to look into solar about 6 months after owning the house, about a year later. Went to a lot of people I work with and spoke to them about their experiences with solar companies, and I went with Bland. Very happy with the solar company. initially tried to get a loan for the solar, didn't work out, and then I was brought up to the HERO program. My concern at the time was that I was still paying PMI on my house and I was going to refi. I was assured by a HERO program that I could refi. There's no issue with that. Went online, got approved within minutes without even talking to anybody. Got the approval to the land. The install went on about 2 weeks later. Got some paperwork in the mail. I signed off on the job, and it was done. They told me that it would start being taken out about a year later in my taxes, which I understood, averaged out the payments, was going to be roughly about $300 a month. After signing all the paperwork, that's when the issue started coming up. Once it started coming out of my taxes about 6 months later, my house payment went up $800 a month, and they stated that the first year they throw in 2 years worth of payments, is what I was told. At the time, it was okay. I was making ends meet. However, as time went on, I wanted to refi. I had no problems with that. I was told they could do that. Started dealing with my loan, the same loan lady that dealt with my original loan, and she told me that they do not allow that. They do not allow subordination. That's when I started doing some more research, figured out that they are first on the lien. I know that goes against a lot of the loan companies. The pages that I signed were about 4 or 5 pages, and I was assured by HERO that I could refinance. There's a lot of misleading things that I was told in the beginning. I've owned several houses over the years. This isn't my first one. I read every page, and it never said that I couldn't refinance. Didn't find that out till now. So I just wanted to express that. I think that the program has some advantages. However, it is flawed, and there needs to be repairs to it and some oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dossi. Good to see you.
Good afternoon. I'll keep this very brief. My name is Robin Rossi. I'm a loan officer with Summit Financial Services here in Bakersfield. I was actually Mr. Dossi's loan officer, so I'm very familiar with his situation, and we did work diligently to try to refinance Mr. Dossi, as we were told by PACE that we could subordinate the program. I did apply, received the subordination package, and in the midst of it, PACE themselves pulled back the subordination program. So I want to make sure that you understand PACE has prevented us from subordinating their product. The other thing I want to bring to the attention is a lot of people are misinformed in that they feel like the only way that they can put solar on their home is through the PACE program, and Fannie Mae actually has a home style program now that allows our borrowers to utilize this loan in order to put these types of services on their homes and to upgrade their homes. The issue is they have to qualify. They have to qualify for the payment. When you compare a home style, a Fannie Mae home style loan with a borrower who's getting a PACE product, we cannot help these people with PACE because A, their home is upside down, and B, they don't qualify with their debt to income ratios. Having lived through the recession, as we all did and saw what's going to happen, people are going to say, I can't afford this house payment. I'm walking away from my house because I can buy again in 3 years, so why should I care? So unfortunately, where the PACE program started out as being the thought behind it is of benefit, the product itself is very detrimental to our housing market, and it's very detrimental to our consumers. They are not qualifying these people to make these house payments. And it's very shocking to them when you have a consumer who calls us and says, I need help, and their payment just went up $750 a month when I qualify the borrower at $750 a month less. That is a shock to a borrower. So I would just like to make sure that from a lender's perspective, council understands these borrowers that are getting these PACE loans, once it sets in, the problem is home is upside down, borrower does not qualify for that payment. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be our last speaker. Come on up. Come on up. You're our last speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Smith. I don't need to spell that, do I? All right.
It's not that late yet.
My wife and I were in Costco in 2014, and Lennox Air had a kiosk there. 1 hour refrigeration was there. I asked them about the price. They said they'd send someone out. They sent someone out on Friday. I was in luck. My house is paid for. I qualified for the HERO program. They had a crane, they had a crew, Within 2 hours, my refrigeration unit was off. They never gave me an itemized cost. The cost was $23,800. When I get it paid off, I'll be 87 years old. I had a 15-year Hero loan. It will cost me $49,000. And I know I'm not smart, because there's a lot of people that get 3 bids, but we didn't. I don't think I should have to pay for that. Mark DeVry, the owner of 1 Hour, said he did 200 jobs, and I was the only unhappy customer. If he did 200 jobs and overcharged everybody as much as he did me, the IRS must love him. I wonder why. Well, to back up, Brian McCarthy came to my house.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
Brian McCarthy came to my house with Mr. Mark DeVry and offered me $4,000 to not pursue any more, to be happy. I said, no, you overcharged me $15,000. Why would I be happy with $4,000? The district attorney has got us, I've got a suit with the district attorney for fraud. I've got a suit with the Bakersfield Legal Assistance for senior abuse. Why? Who said that?
Let's just finish. Let's just. Go on, Mr. Smith. Please proceed.
And I appreciate these guys that are up here, honestly. Oasis Air, they're going to do my service work and everything now. I talked to Mr. Dominguez. There's been one foreclosure, I understand, with Hero program, and it was a 1 Hour refrigeration job that got foreclosed on. I don't know, Northwest, all these guys that are up here, Bland, they're good guys, or they wouldn't be here. But 1 Hour's not here, I can guarantee you. The Kern billing for Hero, this goes on my tax bill. My house was paid for, that's why it was, my wife was using her inhaler to breathe with. She's got adult asthma. They couldn't put enough on. They put an air scrubber, they put a electric filtering system, a 15 SEER, and it was $24,000. When I started complaining, they said, you're going to be able to write it off in your taxes. When they found out my house was paid for, I was fair game.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to go to the rebuttal period. So, Madam Clerk, set the clock. I was going to do 5 and 5. We went 10 over for this side. Set it for 15. If you all don't take it, probably everybody would appreciate it, but you're welcome to it, so it stays fair. So if you can set the clock for 15, and we'll do a rebuttal for the folks that are proponents of PACE, and then we'll do 5 for the folks that are in opposition.
Hi, Brian McCarty, Renovate America Hero Program. I just wanted to rebut the last speaker, give you a little insight to what happened. I did go out, he had a complaint, and shockingly, we comply and respond to complaints. So we went out there to visit the gentleman with the contractor. The $4,000 he's referring to, we offered to pay, he wanted to pay off what was owed at that time on the project. And so we agreed to waive the payoff balance, because when you get into it, when you buy something and it's for a longer term, it's obviously interest and fees associated with that. So that's what we were asking to waive. I never instructed him to not pursue anything. So I don't know where that came from. He might be, I just wanted to clarify that. Do you remember that by any chance?
Well, listen, you guys don't, we can't pick it up on
Okay,
the mic.
I'm sorry.
If you go
I
back
apologize
and forth.
to the
That's
board.
all right. And I'm telling you, Mr. Smith, if you want to speak under the rebuttal period for your side, then you can do that, but we're not going to do the back and forth right now.
Well, let me just wrap this up. Mr. Smith, I feel bad that he had a bad experience. He obviously paid for a unit that he's not happy the amount that he paid for. That's free market. That's just the way it is. Without Hero, that still goes on every day without PACE.
Take it easy, everybody. Come on.
Wow.
You'll have your chance.
I can assure you that people that buy things and don't have the advantage of PACE are still paying too much at times. That's why it's obviously recommended by everyone that you get 3 bids. So I'm not up here to attack anybody. I just wanted to rebut what he had claimed that I had said. I never told him not to pursue anything. We have a compliance department. If one of our homeowners has a complaint and an issue, we respond to it. That's why I went out there to meet with him. That job was actually sold in March or April of 14. I was hired in November of 14. I was not here when that happened, but I was here when we tried to help them. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Who'll be next, please?
Hello, Board. Good morning or good afternoon. Good seeing you again. Dean Flores. I'm not sure I have much opposition other than observations. I won't take too much time since I know the clock's ticking, but I would say a couple of things. First and foremost, I was in the legislature when we created the PACE program, so I understand the arguments. It's kind of like deja vu all over again, hearing consumers, realtors, mortgage bankers, all, in essence, trying to get to a solution. I would just ask the board as elected officials, one of the hardest things, having been elected officials, to find solutions. And, I would hope that the board would consider sending people to the table under your CAO and trying to figure out 2 things. The first would be, what are the consumer protections that will really protect residents here in Kern County? Really detailing what those are super important. I think I hear half the room, if not both sides, saying that. The second thing I would ask is to ask the question from your CAO, what powers does this board really have when it comes to the first lien position? The reality is the board may want to change the speed limit on Highway 99, but if you're not empowered to do that, it's putting you in a very bad position to make a decision that you're not really empowered to make. So I think one of the fruitful things would be to have the CAO report back to you on what power you actually have when it comes to the lien position. If not, I think you're being put in a position to end a program, good or bad, on a premise of something that you can change that you actually cannot change. So I think that's just good public policy, and I would hope that everyone in the room would recognize that at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is find a solution. No is never a solution. Truly what a solution is, getting to the table, getting good information. You've heard from both sides, and I would hope that you would hear from your CAO at some point in time, filtering through this and trying to get people to the table to get a solution on these consumer protections, which are absolutely valid and sound like things that need to be fixed. And I can say one thing, if you do that, you may be the only board in the state of California to actually offer higher protections under the PACE program. And I think that's awesome. I think that would be a good thing and a good signal to send to not only every board, every city council, but more importantly to Sacramento, as they start to debate what kinds of protections need to be in place. So that's really all I want to say, and that is I hope that this is not the end, but a continuation of a policy discussion that actually needs some analysis. It's good to hear both sides, but I think at the end of the day, you hire your CAO for a reason, you hire your staff for a reason, and I think at the end of the day, you need to hear good, valid, solid arguments going through all this. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Who'll be next, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Kevlis from Renew Financial. We administer the California First PACE Financing Program.
Would you spell your last name, please? I didn't catch that either.
Jonathan Kevlis, K-E-V like victory, L-E-S like Sunday.
Thank you.
In all due respect to Mr. Ortiz from the Chamber, it is absolutely not an on or off only binary option in front of you. We actually proposed to the City of Bakersfield, and we propose to you as well, as we have done with other jurisdictions across the state, both city and county, that you do have the power to impose any particular restriction you want. You can make us give people a free gallon of ice cream with every PACE financing if you like. That is your prerogative. I don't suggest that. But for instance, in Bakersfield, we are saying, okay, require that we provide cost caps, that we have a check on on all projects to make sure that costs are staying in line. So there are mechanisms at your disposal that we can come to the table and discuss with all of you to make sure that we do meet the concerns. One thing I do say, I am a little bit frustrated by some of the comments today from the opposition because they are either false, inaccurate, or they're unsubstantiated. For instance, the gentleman who said that the FHA and VA mortgagee letters do not permit PACE, absolutely incorrect. The letters say exactly the opposite. We'll provide those to staff so they can read them themselves. In addition, many unsubstantiated claims, less than effective disclosures. It's hearsay. Based on what evidence? Valuation issues. Well, based on what evidence? Particularly irksome is the comment by the first speaker, excessive interest rates. Well, I just now, during this discussion, went online and looked at the Wells Fargo home equity line loan rates for fixed rate loans. They are exactly equal to or a bit higher than PACE rates. So the fact of excessive interest rates is just not true. So I think I do recommend that we all come to the table together, both pro and con, hash out these issues, bring actual facts and statistics to the table so we can make good policy based on facts and the right information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dustin Reilich from Renovate America's Hero Program once again. Thank you very much. I want to hit on a couple of different things. Oversight is one of those things. Yes, we've self-imposed a lot of things. I went through it earlier. We've removed 80 of our top 550 contractors out of our program. 23 of those had done business here in Kern County. We are doing our best to try to police the industry as it is known as home improvement industry, trying to get rid of contractors that are providing bad presentations to your homeowners, and we have done so through that process. The average FICO, and this is a misnomer because people think that we don't pull credit. We pull credit on every single individual, and the average FICO of your constituents that have utilized our program is a 698. So this is not a program that is preying on people with 500 credit or anything of that nature. This is for the average homeowner that wants to be able to do an upgrade at their property. A couple of your speakers today, and what I did see in opposition, and you know, God bless them. I know that the realtors have other steps that have been taking place in this process. And I know that they're very passionate, and I appreciate the passion that they bring to this room. But we brought homeowners with us, happy homeowners that believe in this product and want this product to be available to their neighbors and their friends and their family. The couple of homeowners that spoke today, I kind of don't want to poke holes at it, but the one thing that Sarah Silvestra didn't represent to you is that she is a realtor. She self-represented herself on her actual sale of her property. The assessment was done and it was recorded by Western Riverside Council of Governments in September of 2014. She bought the house in 2015. If she had simply pulled the title report, because as Sherry Anthus said, yes, you do find it, it is on the preliminary title report, which is one of the due diligence factors that realtors have to do as part of their process. Maybe she didn't pull it in time. Maybe she didn't know where to find it, and maybe that falls on us. I'm fully aware that not all title companies register it the same way on page 2 under tax liens. Sometimes it falls under a mechanic lien and it's hard to find. We're working with the title companies to bring that up to par so that they have that recording perfectly on the top 2 or 3 pages of the title report. Your other homeowner, Ms. Dominguez, she's saying that she has problems with a refinance. Look at page 3 of our disclosures and you will see we have always disclosed to homeowners that you may not be able to sell or refinance. At a sale or refinance, you may have to pay off your PACE assessment. It's always been part of our program on the application, because that's the disclosure forms, but on the application it actually says it in bold capitalized letters, and that was on actually Mr. Dossie's documents as well, that you may have to pay it off. I actually called my headquarters and had them pull up his file to make sure that that was on there, and they sent me a snippet of it. It's on every single one of these disclosures. They're there. And the average project here in Kern County is between $16,000 and $17,000. The options that have been given by the real estate community for 14 different options that are available for financing other than PACE, many of those went away in 2015. They were under the 2011 Obama plan, and they retired in 2015. So they even in their recent articles in the Realtor magazine put out some bad information to homeowners saying that the Power Saver loans are available. They expired in 2015. We need to start living today for tomorrow and making sure that we protect our homeowners today for tomorrow. All of the AB 2693 regulations from the state legislature have been put into place. All of the SB 242 things will be put into place, and all PACE providers are willing to put them into place early here in Kern County to make sure that we protect your homeowners and make sure that you're going to have a viable option for all of your homeowners long term. A couple of other things that came up. FHA and VA, which is a large part of your market, on 7/19 of 2016, the HUD, FHA and VA put out guidance that they accept PACE assessments on the tax bill. FHFA has still been saying under Freddie and Fannie that they do not allow it, and that's why we do the disclosures so thoroughly, and we go over it on our 100% confirmed term calls, making sure that homeowners understand that if they sell or refinance, they may have to pay off that assessment. I hope that you decide for the people, all the people that want to utilize this product here in Kern County, to keep this viable option available. Yes, it needs to be policed. We're trying our best to police it. We're up for more regulations on it. We're perfectly fine with that. And we're trying to self-impose them ourselves today. Please keep PACE alive for constituents that want to use it in the future.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Are there any other speakers during this rebuttal period? Okay, going once. Okay, don't see any. All right, so now we will, ma'am, are you wanting to rebut for the proponents?
I want to oppose.
Right, okay, so that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to we'll set the clock for 5 minutes, and this is a rebuttal period for those folks that are opposed to the PACE program. Please come up. Can you get that set for 5 minutes? Are you doing that, Kathy, or excuse me? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Sarah Silvestro. I did come up earlier and give my bit on my experience. Yes, I am a realtor. However, I came here as a homeowner because obviously we have plenty of realtor representation, but I did want to make the point that we did go through escrow, we did go through the title information, we did go through the tax roll, and it was not disclosed. So I do appreciate the other comment, but I did want to clarify that. So I just, I urge you to really look hard at this and know that it's affecting people at a very deep level. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure that we make something clear. As of today at 10 a.m. this morning, I requested a subordination package for Mr. Dosey for the PACE program, and PACE declined it. So we cannot lend on properties with PACE. PACE declined to offer subordination. We have to be able to subordinate in order to lend. FHA and VA, HUD will not accept PACE at this present time. If there is a lender that's doing them, I would certainly like to know that, because I, as a loan officer, would love to offer that product. But as of 10 a.m. this morning, PACE would not give me a subordination package, and that came straight from the legal department. So that would be something that I would encourage you to check on and perhaps get with escrow so that you can see we cannot lend, which means we cannot sell or refi. Thank you.
And you're Ms. Rossi, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Tom Smith again. Mr. McCarthy come up and said that the $4,000 wasn't to drop the case. I don't know if that's potatoes or potatoes, because two guys from Riverside came up about 3 months later and offered me $4,000 if I would be satisfied with $4,000. I should have taken the money, because I don't think Once I turn it over to the district attorney, I don't think I can drop the charges if I want to. He's got it now, not me. But it's a bad deal. I can tell you that right now. For some people, like I told you, the contractors that are here, I believe them. The people that like it, like it. But I can guarantee you there's a lot of people that don't like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any other speakers? Please come forward. And if you could remind us of your name if you spoke before.
Sherry Anthus, Bakersfield Association of Realtors. I want to thank you for your time. We've been doing this for a while, and it becomes very passionate, and as you can see. So I just want to ask again, we are asking for a pause. We see the good and we see the bad. The policy itself is flawed. That's where the problem exists. The way it was written, the way it was designed, does not have the protective factors in place to prevent the issues you've heard. Yes, it allows the good, it doesn't prevent the bad. We do not believe that we as a community should use our government and local resources to correct a flawed policy. If we kick it back, it will be back, but it will look different, it will sound different, and it will have much more of the complaints that we have proposed removed from it, because those opportunities will be readdressed. And again, thank you very much for your time, and we ask that you rescind the resolutions, stop PACE under its current policy, and force them to correct it before it comes back. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 45 seconds. Is there another speaker? That will be all the time. Come on, quick speaker.
My name's Bill Mel. I'm a local realtor. This is Bill Mel. Last name's M as in Mary, E-L-L. So we have a lot of great people here today, a lot of great contractors, and this is not a community war issue. This is an issue about looking out for people's better good, if you will. In 2003, we had some loans that were put out that you could suggest or tell the lender at that time what your income was at that time. And we're suggesting that maybe this is something similar to that. I personally think there should be something along the lines of an appraisal or a valuation set on the property, because you're going to loan money on a property on assumed value. That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for cooperating with the timer. We did pretty good on that, so I appreciate everybody. Appreciate everybody being here. I didn't want to cut anybody off who made the trip down here, but we are trying to get out of here in a reasonable amount of time. And so I'm going to return to the board, and we'll ask which one of the board members would like to start us off.
I can go.
Supervisor Gleason.
I'm not sure I want to, but I will. First off, I want to thank everybody for being here. And I agree with the last speaker, Mr. Mel. This isn't a war. This is about policy. This is about public good and how do we best support our community. And none of you would be here if you weren't honest brokers of your trade, doing the best job you could for making a profit and for building our economy and for taking care of our community. So there are no aspersions in this room for anybody who does anything to help this community grow. And we all feel that way. Mr. Kaufman, could you come up, please, for a second? I got a quick question for you. What?
Good afternoon.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. Jordan Kaufman, Kern County Treasurer, Tax
Kaufman.
Collector. Yes.
Okay.
I
got corrected. I
dubious
can't stand
pleasure of
corrected.
collecting these assessments.
Right. We heard some report say that you spend money on these collections. Is that true? $35 a transaction or something like that?
No, that's actually inaccurate. It's actually the auditor that handles the actual contracts. Obviously, I do collect the assessments on the bill, but that doesn't represent an additional cost of
Do you know how much the
collection.
charge is to the county for this program? How much we pay for monitoring and the assessments, the tax rolls?
I don't. That's an auditor question.
Thank you very much. We'll find that out.
I do have some other comments, but if
Go ahead.
this is not the right time, I'm happy to wait as well.
Mr. Kaufman, could you please briefly state your comments?
So they're sort of brief. Actually, it's about 5 or 10 minutes of opinions and information. So again, I'm happy to wait if you would like to.
Why don't we wait?
That's fine.
Unless the chairman has other thoughts.
You have 5 or 10 minutes of comments, you said? Are you, what do you-
I do. I'm full of opinions and information.
It might help us.
Okay, I'll allow it if, since Supervisor Gleason. Now Supervisor Gleason, he cracked the seal on
If
it.
you're going to help us make a more intelligent decision, then I'm all for it.
All right. So that is, hopefully that is the case.
Please be quick.
He's up for re-election, I think, in 3 years, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
We may be here still.
So obviously, there's a lot of passion in the room on both sides, clearly. I want to give obviously some of my opinions about what some of the issues are with PACE, and I do believe there are some serious issues that do need to be addressed with PACE. I want to talk about some legislation that's in the state, at the state level, some legislation that hasn't been mentioned at all today, but that I think is very important. And provide some kind of factual information. But first, just from a disclosure standpoint, I am a voluntary commissioner on CSCDA, which is the California Statewide Community Development Authority, which is a JPA between CSAC and the League of Cities, and among other lines of financing products, they also have a PACE line, California First. However, I am certainly here today not representing CSCDA or PACE. I am representing the constituents of Kern County and your board and my office as well. So, in general, I'm absolutely in favor of renewable energy. I'm in favor of solar power. I'm in favor of, obviously, good technical job creation. However, and PACE obviously is another financing option to further those causes. However, the way PACE is structured today has a lot of flaws, has a lot of issues. Many of those have been talked about today, but I just want to go over a couple of them. I mean, the biggest thing is sort of the lack of regulation, lack of disclosure. One of the biggest issues is the fact that you have contractors sort of pitching financing options. That is fundamentally, in my opinion, not the best public policy. If you're selling a product, you shouldn't also be selling the financing for that product. And while there may be disclosures out there, it's questioned whether contractors are actually following all of that. Obviously, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence about price inflation, misrepresentation. The big question is how pervasive is that? I don't think anybody has any statistics on that. I don't, unfortunately. So I think it is happening that property owners don't realize that they are going to have this greatly inflated tax bill when they get their next tax bill. Believe me, I get the calls. My staff gets the calls. Why did my bill double? Obviously, the fact that there's no ability to pay information required like any other normal loan. An issue for me also is what I call project creep and what is allowable to be financed under PACE. I think the spirit of it is kind of solar and HVAC and some of those big things. There's been a lot of project creep and now a lot of things that maybe have one tiny little energy saving component of a much bigger project is approved for a PACE loan because there is an energy savings component, even if it's really not material to the project. I think that's a problem. And then as far as the interest rate, one of the gentlemen did talk about it, and I think it's an issue, which is sort of a disclosure issue, which is the stated sort of advertised interest rate is one thing, but then when you add in all of the fees, capitalized interest, everything else associated with a PACE program, the actual interest rate can be 3% higher. And so an advertised rate of 6% turns into 9, or advertised rate of 7 turns into 10, and that's kind of a disclosure issue. Now I wanted to just give you some facts about PACE in Kern County. So at least related to tax collection. So there are a total of, and this is data as of May 10th, so last month, 2,510 PACE assessments on the property tax rolls. The current year delinquencies for those properties that have a PACE assessment is 72 properties. So that's 72 property owners that either have not paid one or both installments of their current year taxes. That's about 2.87% delinquency rate, which is slightly higher than the kind of historical average over the last few years of about 2%. It isn't so much higher that you can say it is absolutely because of PACE, but it is slightly higher. And then the more important thing is how many properties have a prior year defaulted PACE assessment, so an actual PACE assessment that is defaulted. And that number right now stands at 2. There's only 2 properties that have a defaulted PACE lien. However, there are a total of 59 properties, and I think that was referenced on one of the slides. There is a total of 59 properties with PACE assessments on them that have prior year defaults completely unrelated to that PACE assessment. So that PACE assessment isn't defaulted, but the property taxes from prior years are defaulted. Going back to the 72, the important thing there is actually going to be on July 1, when delinquencies roll over to the next year and become defaults. That's going to be the big telling time frame, is how many of those actually turn into a defaulted PACE loan. And that is important because once property goes into default status, the penalties associated with that is 18% per year, and that's set by state law. And so a defaulted PACE assessment carries 18% interest for them. And where does that 18% interest go? If it is paid off if the taxes are paid in arrears on a defaulted status, that 18% goes to the PACE bondholders. It does not come back to the county coffers, which is why there is actually a very important state legislative initiative, which is AB 271, that wasn't mentioned at all today, but it's very important to me and my association and treasurer tax collectors. It was actually initiated by my statewide association. And what that bill allows is for any defaulted PACE lien, it allows the tax collector of that county to remove that PACE lien, or excuse me, that PACE assessment, that year's PACE assessment, to strip it from the bill. And that does 3 things. One, it brings the bill back down, hopefully to a manageable size. If it had tripled because of the PACE lien or doubled, once it's stripped, they can pay just the rest of the bill. It eliminates the PACE provider from getting 18% per year interest, which I think is not good policy. But also, I think one of the benefits of that is if the responsibility, the onus for collecting defaulted PACE assessments goes to the PACE provider as opposed to staying with the county, that is going to motivate them to make reforms up front so that they don't have to deal with all the problems on the back end. Right now, they don't have to. It's all our responsibility. We are collecting it on their behalf. If this legislation passes, we can strip that from the bill. It becomes the PACE provider's responsibility, and then again, hopefully that will kind of motivate them to do the right thing up front. That legislation has passed the full assembly unanimously. It's on to the Senate. Obviously, would love your board's support on that. SB 272, the Skinner bill, been lots of discussion there, so I won't go over that. There's also, obviously, this is a bigger issue than Kern County. It's a national issue. There's some national legislation related to the truth in lending standards that would essentially hold PACE loans to the same standard as other loans, which I think is appropriate. Obviously, you know, your board is in a very tough position. There's two competing sides. There's, you know, to me, there's sort of the three options are do nothing, let the pace continue, or another option obviously is to cancel or maybe put a temporary moratorium on pace until maybe some legislation is provided. The option that was talked about maybe amending the current PACE contracts to include some local requirements, you know, whatever the board deems is important as far as consumer protections. What my opinion is, while that sounds good on the face of it, the problem with adding local requirements or restrictions is then how are we going to enforce that? It would become our local issue to enforce it. I don't think, and we don't have, at least we don't at this point, have the infrastructure necessary to enforce those local, any type of local regulations. And even if the PACE providers compensated or reimbursed the county for that, I think that cost would probably just be passed on to the consumer and make these even more expensive. So I don't necessarily think that's a good option. You know, I don't lean really strongly either way because I'm hopeful that the state legislation is going to pass. I will say if you were to choose the option to cancel PACE until legislation was passed, that would certainly motivate the PACE providers to not actively oppose legislation such as AB 271 and maybe even support it to further strengthen the PACE program. That really concludes my comments.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Kevlis, I think your name is Jonathan Kevlis. Is that how, could you come down for a quick second? And you'll be the last person I call.
I'll be fast if you're fast.
Thanks. You said there's a lot, we can make a lot of adjustments. We can change a lot of things in this program, is that correct?
Correct.
Can we change and subordinate this PACE lien to the primary existing lien?
I don't, as Mr. Flores mentioned, I don't know if that's in the authority of the county to do so.
Does anyone know if we can do that?
I don't know that. I don't know that. But what you can do is, and I think that at least one other local government is considering the following is require that PACE programs available here provide the contractual limited subordination option. I know there's a couple of local governments I'm talking to right now in Southern California, further south, are considering that option as a condition of of approval.
Thank you, sir. Margaret, do you have a thought? Thank you, Mr. Kevlis. You can sit down.
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair. The county has no regulatory power over the PACE or the HERO program, so you can't necessarily do that. However, if the board's interested in finding out exactly where the powers of the board is, we can do further research. I understand that there are some localities or municipalities that are looking into that, but you're limited in the regulatory powers that you have.
Thank you very much. Let me continue on, and we'll probably dive a little deeper into that. I agree almost exactly with what Mr. Agbalog. Are you still here, Romeo? He left. He said some interesting things. I think he was referring back to the Community Reinvestment Program, which was started in 1977 by President Carter, and the purpose of that was we had a problem. We had a problem in this country, and that was home ownership. We needed to spur activity. We need to develop home ownership. So what we did is we created a government program that would allow people who couldn't afford if Mick Gleason can't afford a $200,000 home, but I could afford $150,000, well, I can go through this program and government would stamp the guarantee so that I would then qualify, although I really didn't financially qualify for that loan, I could get that mortgage. And President Carter pushed it, then President Reagan pushed it, then Bush, then Clinton, then Bush. Everybody's pushing because home ownership is a real problem in our country. And we found out that we were trying to make a government impact on a private transaction in order to improve the quality of life for Americans. And so what happened in 2008, 2009, one of the main causes of the crash was the fact that we had Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that were underwriting all these loans with people who couldn't afford to pay them. So they were securities and packaged securities that could not be paid for, and they were being botted all over the world. And as a result, one thing led to another, and that was one of the contributing factors of the effort of the government to do something good, because we had a problem, we wanted to do something noble. I'm not comparing this program, PACE program, with that, but there are similarities that draw your attention. And once the government gets involved in a program, then there are always going to be domino effects that not necessarily always going to be welcome. This isn't a government program yet, but we are using our tax rolls. We are sitting here in Kern County at the Board of Supervisors. We are having Senate bills, Assembly bills going through to either shore up or defend or modify a non-government transaction. So I have concerns, and now we're sitting about adding more regulations on top of it in order to make it more fair for people. What that tells me is we're going to have more government interference with a private transaction. So I think his name was, one of the first guys who talked about caveat emptor, and somebody else talked about free market, Mr. Matthew Wallace. People were talking about these principles of the market and limited government, but they had nothing to do with what we're doing today. The PACE program is essentially a government stepping in and loading a real estate transaction today, tomorrow, next year, the next 20 years. We're going to have effect after effect after effect of the PACE program because we're trying to do something good for people, which is an entirely noble thing, but we must be careful on how we approach that type of activity, because it impacts all of us and it will have domino effects that we'll be feeling for a long time. Noble cause. The cause is achieve the governor's standard energy efficiency goals of 2050 to help people out. The program is designed primarily, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me like if a buyer of a solar panel has equity in his home, he has good tax record and mortgage payment record, then we don't care what his credit rating is, he qualifies for this program. So it sounds to me like, in a general sense, we're not doing justice. We are targeting people with, everybody can take advantage of it, but we're enabling people with poor credit histories to purchase something that they otherwise could not afford. And I disagree with Mr. Flores, because I respectfully disagree with Mr. Flores, because I think government policy, sometimes good government policy, is to say no. I think no is a good answer, a good solution at times. And I'm not saying I'm a full no on this now, but I strongly lean in that direction. I have some issues with this program. First and foremost, consulting with one of my closest friends, dear friends in Ridgecrest, a realtor of impeccable standards, knows the business, she's awesome. And she says, Mick, the senior lien is patently unfair. If I loan you $200,000 to buy a house, I'm doing that out of a transaction. I'm saying, okay, I've got the lien, I got it, and I'm going to get paid back, and everything's fine and dandy. And then someone else comes in between us and says, I'm sorry, you're secondary, Mick. You got to take a back seat, and I get paid off first. Whether that house goes up or down in value means that if I sell that house, or if you were to sell that house for $200,000, we pay off the primary lien, the senior lien, for $20,000 because it was 10% equity. But I got to pay, if the house goes down, I suffer the loss because it's not going to come to me. I've got to pay the admin fees. I got to pay the closing costs, and I'm going to be the victim of a deal that was a noble effort in trying to do good for the community and for people. So I think there are problems with the idea of this PACE stuff. I don't know who controls the interest rates. Who controls the interest rates? There's a group down in San Diego that controls. Anybody know who sets the interest rate? How is the interest rate set on the PACE loan?
The market. We offer rates.
Okay, good enough. Thank you, sir, appreciate it. I got it. It's the market, okay. This is my issues, and I'll wrap it up real quick. I think there's a domino effect that the PACE lien is a ball and chain on that home or that homeowner that could have repercussions. You know, if the person lives in the home for 30 years, okay, great deal. But if he wants to move, like most of our society, in 5 to 10 years, then it's a challenge, because there are some organizations that will just not pick up the loan and pay it off, or allow a buyer to purchase that property with a PACE loan on it. I have a serious problem with the senior lien. I'm going to have a hard time voting yes. I'm not saying absolute no, but I'm going to have a hard time approving anything that gives a senior lien to someone other than the primary lender. I'd like to know more about interest rate controls. If the market is the market, well, we have, you know, why isn't it like set at 2% over the mortgage rate and standardized? So if the mortgage rate fluctuates 2%, that's the interest rate. So I don't know, just an idea. I would like to see stronger licensing requirements. If I'm going to regulate the business, if we're going to go into this and county's going to regulate, my vote is going to be saying, I want to regulate licensing. I want to have a credit evaluation of the buyer. I want to understand their credit. And I also want to, I forget what my last thing was. There was one other thing I wanted to do. Sorry, it's late in the afternoon. Oh, no. I wanted a appraisal. Advice, some other just way of looking at it. I don't need your applause. I really don't need your applause, and I don't want it. I'm not trying to be rude, but that's how I feel. It's a difficult decision. I respect all of you, and I'm listening to anybody who can change my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Gleason. Supervisor Perez?
Mr. Alsop, could you chime in, either any member of your team or our legal counsel, to give us some direction as to what is within our jurisdiction? What do you see as some possible, options, given the testimony that we have received today? How should we think about moving forward? Because this is immensely complicated, obviously.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Help us, Ryan.
I appreciate Mr. Flores' confidence in me as well. I wanted to say that about solving all the problems. I want to thank Mr. Kaufman. He was also in the stakeholder meeting that we had put together, and he's an important person to have in this discussion. And he has been in touch with Thomas over the few weeks that we've been putting the data together, and we're trying to stay fact-based as best we can without trying to editorialize on this. This is a policy decision of your board. I wanted to also thank Mr. Kaufman for giving us a heads up on 271, and I beg your pardon for not having Thomas mention that or actually having it written in the report. It was something that we weren't made aware of until yesterday, so I wanted to thank Mr. Kaufman for making us aware of that bill. There are a couple issues here which I'll touch on, and then I also wanted to make you aware and make the public aware of something that I've been advised on. It's clear that this is a public policy PACE, right? That's focused on promoting a public good or a set of public goods, right? And however, there are some clear negative externalities associated with that public policy. It's clear. You've got a whole bunch of folks that you all know here sitting in the room that are business people, have been in this community a long time, who are telling you that there are some issues, and they're on the street and they're identifying them, and while there might not be a lot of data right now, clear data to make their point, I think you could take them at their word as the good business people that they are, and to also listen to the fact that where things stand in their industry related to PACE, they're seeing things potentially escalating and becoming a real problem down the road. So with all of that, you've got some options. I could have Thomas go down the list and review the options for you, but I think there are probably a couple a couple of options that your board may consider. And I think that you probably aren't in a position today. In fact, I know that you're not able today to make a decision. You'll have to direct us to come back, and we'll have to do some more work. But one option available to you is we go back to, we get in a room with some representatives and figure out if there is a set of things that this board can implement locally on top of the program without doing away with it. This is option number one, without doing away with it, to see if there is some common ground. I don't know if there is. I'm kind of hopeful that there might be, if that's the option. To figure out if there's a way that this board can put a layer of reporting requirements, having staff make you aware of the program and its status in Kern County going forward on a quarterly basis, on a couple times a year, maybe even more frequent than that. Maybe establishing some liaison with certainly the realtor group and other stakeholders in the community. There are things that we can take from the state legislation that we might want to put in place locally. So we can get in a room and figure out what all those things are, if that is something that you'd like to do and you don't want to quite do away with the program yet. I would say the other option available to you is to just end the program until you feel and your a majority of residents and business owners and stakeholders in all of this feel that some of the consumer protection items that they're outlining here get addressed. Now, I'm taking away from this that the super lien status piece is the issue, primarily for these folks out here. And there's really nothing being done, whether it's 271 or whatever, to address that. Maybe a moratorium locally for a period of time, sends a signal to the folks that are in this business that they need to work on doing something in that regard. So as a second option, so the super lien status, I think the education or lack of is a major component, really the second piece of this. Those are things that the legislation is certainly trying to address. The disclosures and the education. Your board can also try and do some things here locally on that. But I think it all comes down to the super lien piece, I think. I think that's my read and our staff's read on it. I think those are your two options, really. I'm not sure you can walk away and not really sort of just kind of not doing anything after a meeting like today. You've had a lot of folks, a lot of passion, and yeah, sure.
I don't do this
It's
very
up to the
often,
chair.
Mr. Chairman. Can I just have a minute to explain something? It's the property tax that
Are you going to wait for my
this
answer?
Pardon me?
Are you going to wait for my answer?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you may.
Mr. Chairman, the property tax has the superior position. It always has. And the Wall Street geniuses were able to have 100% guaranteed loans by tying it to the property tax. That's the problem. These loans are 100% guaranteed because they have the superiority of the property tax. So you asked that question, Mr. Gleason. Property tax has a superior right, not necessarily the PACE loan, but by law, the PACE loan is using property taxes to pay for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey.
It's a small fact. In foreclosure, the entire balance of the PACE loan does not get paid. Only the amounts delinquent or currently due. So, yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It's absolutely correct.
Okay.
I have to say that.
All right,
Well,
let's,
I think
so
we must
so
go to
there's
staff to
there's
bring
argument.
lawyers together to determine this because
Very good, very good.
it's
Okay.
fact.
Okay,
Well,
thank you,
when
thank you.
when a school bond is not paid because a property tax payment is not paid, the entire amount of the school bond doesn't get paid. The exact same thing with PACE, just the amounts in arrears are
Okay,
paid
and
in a
I
foreclosure.
appreciate that. Obviously, there's not agreement in the room that that's the case. Thank you. Thank you. No, listen, I appreciate it, but we're going long. I don't remember who's up right now. Supervisor Maggard, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mr. Were you done? I'm certainly going to defer to you if you weren't. Okay. I want to read you a letter from, an excerpt from a letter from a little lady who lives in Oildale. And this is just a real person who has a compounding problem on her hands. She explains that she had a HERO program loan to put some energy conservation paint of some sort on her home, and there are some issues with the product that she received, and she's not received satisfaction about that. That's disappointing, but that's not the fundamental problem to me. I'm here to advocate on behalf of my constituents, and I'll come back to that about the issue about jobs in a moment, but this is a real story from a real lady who lives in the heart of Oildale. The payment we now have has been a serious, the HERO payment she has to make, has been a serious hardship on my family. Just recently I suffered a heart attack and have been dealing with medical bills associated to that. Due to those bills, I have fallen behind on several other bills, including my property taxes. I received a letter from HERO stating that I needed to pay or I could risk losing my home. I take care of my mother with Alzheimer's, and I cannot risk losing my home. Instead, I have to skip my payments on my car and my mortgage for the next 2 months in order to pay the HERO program. I'm not going to give you her name because this is how she ends it. I do feel as though I got conned into thinking that this program was going to help me, but it has only turned out to put me and my mother at an additional hardship. I am scared and I am embarrassed. It is not, there are obviously some circumstances where this has helped, but there are many other circumstances where this has not helped. And that risk is, we are able to control that risk by terminating this program today. It is conceivable that the program, if it, I was interested in the way somebody described it, they're trying to self-police themselves. They've had years to self-police themselves, and it's not policed sufficiently. So if the program gets cleaned up, let it come back to us again. But the super lien issue is the fundamental flaw. There are others that I'm not going to go into a long description to try to give you justification for. But it is another fundamental flaw to me is that there is bad information being conveyed. I'm not suggesting that's by anybody who's in this room. I have a great deal of respect for people who I don't know, but people whose reputations precedes them as to who the vendors are involved in this. But I've had people come to me and ask me, this guy said I can do this because I'm a public safety person. I'm a fireman. It's a HERO program. I can do it because I'm a fireman. Another guy came to me and said, this guy said I can do this, and I can get a solar credit for all the cost of putting a new roof on my house because the solar panel is going to go on top of that new roof. Another person came to me and said that they were told that they could now deduct on their taxes all of the cost of the program because it's on their property tax bill. All those things are patently untrue. It is not my fault that they're untrue. It is not the fault of good people in this room who are doing a good job for people that is untrue. But it is true that good people are being told untruthful things. And I can stop that by making a motion today to rescind this program, to repeal this program. If it comes back, if it comes back in some other form at some point down the road, then it should let it do that. But to prolong the risk to my constituents, to this little lady in Oildale and others like her, I don't think that's responsible to do. So I'm going to make a motion today that we receive and file a report, that we direct staff to come back to us. I'll let the chairman and the clerk pick the date, but come back to us in short order with language that will repeal and rescind the program, period. That's my motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Maggard. Supervisor Couch.
Thank you. I want to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to be pretty quick, but I want to make sure the couple of people that spoke initially lived, I think, in Kern City. And any action we take would not have anything to do with them because they live within the city of Bakersfield, correct? City of Bakersfield has the option of staying and getting out. Is that correct?
Chairman Scrivener, Supervisor Couch, yeah, that's correct. Your action would only deal with the program in the unincorporated areas of Kern County.
And if Supervisor Maggart's motion were to pass, it doesn't affect any current PACE assessments. No one who's got one on their property tax bill and they're able to pay it has to worry about any issues from our action. Is that right?
That's our understanding.
That's my understanding, but is that accurate? Jordan, Mr. Kaufman is signaling yes. I'm going to repeat what others have said, but it needs to be said. There are really good people and really good contractors in the room, and I believe we are being put in a position of potentially damaging your business because of that super lien component of this, which in my opinion is just wrong, and I don't even know how it got to this point. I don't know how that law came into effect exactly, but it is what it is. We have the ability to do something about it. But that's going to have to get addressed in the legislation, and I think we should be engaged in that. So would you be willing to have that be part of your motion, that we be actively engaged in the elements of any legislation that would impact this program going forward?
Through the chair, I'm open to our participate in the legislative process as it is amended going forward.
Yeah.
But what's fundamental to me is that this program be repealed and not go forward. It needs to come back to us in some form later on.
And I want to ask a question about that. If we repeal this and it gets fixed to everybody's satisfaction, is it more cumbersome for us to bring it back? How long does it take if we wanted to reinstitute it versus what I think Ms. Anthus was requesting, which was the sort of hitting the pause button, a moratorium in effect?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, it's my understanding that you would have to again go through the resolution process as though it were a new program.
But is that what we would have to do anyway?
Yeah.
Whether it's a moratorium or not?
Supervisor Couch, you could bring it back as easily as you brought it in.
Okay. I'm happy to second your motion. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'll go ahead and chime in and give my thoughts, and some of this is going to be a little bit repetitive, but I apologize. I want everybody to know what my line of thinking is. First of all, I try to do my due diligence on this issue. I've talked to a lot of folks of trying to get firsthand stories where it wasn't just anecdotal, where you're hearing all these things are happening, bad things are happening, et cetera. And on the good side as well, I tried to get examples. And so I talked to folks that I know that did a PACE loan, didn't realize what the interest was going to be. It got them in financial trouble. They had to figure out ways to dig out of it. And I think that there are a lot of stories that are out there, but people are embarrassed because they made a mistake a lot of time. Maybe they weren't told the truth, but they should have. They felt like they should have gone the extra step to get more than one bid, or to check the story out to make sure they could refi, whatever it is. And so that was a big concern. I know that that there are a lot of good actors that have taken advantage of this program as far as their business is concerned, and also people who have taken advantage of it for their home, and they're happy with it. Those people who are planning on staying in their home for a long time, that are going to be able to pay off the loan. Maybe they're okay with the interest rate, whatever. But as has been said here before, life does happen. There are things that come up that are unforeseen, and all of a sudden you're going to have to sell, you're going to have to move, and then you find out that you have an encumbrance on your property that is going to make the sale very difficult. I mean, we talked about Fannie and Freddie, so I'm not going to get into that. But I can't think of many times, if ever, that I've said to myself, if I would have known then what I know now, I wouldn't have done it. And I was here when we agreed when we authorized PACE to be able to operate in Kern County. At the time, there was no opposition. I think one of our realtors gave testimony that we weren't opposed to it. It looked good. It sounded good. You know, you could do energy efficiency upgrades to your house, and this was a way to pay for it. But I think the fact that it is a government program and it's sold as a government program, it gives people a sense of security and peace of mind that there isn't going to be anything wrong because it's been vetted, the government's backing it, and that's really not the case. We allow it to occur, but we have no oversight over it. And the oversight has been happening slowly in Sacramento, but it hasn't been happening quickly enough as far as I can see. I understand that there are businesses that have added a lot of workers, gone from 10 to 40 employees or whatever. But that to me is actually a red flag. That shows that we may be looking at some kind of a bubble of sorts if we're adding that much because the government has put in place a certain program that's allowed this kind of financing. I'm concerned about the lack of appraisals where you can't determine value and therefore, what's the proper equity. No verification of the ability to pay. The fact that there are high interest rates are being paid. To me, interest rates should be a function of risk. If it's a risky program, then you should pay high interest. This is not a risky program because this loan has to be paid before anything else because if there's a foreclosure, the first thing that gets paid by the bank is this. So where's the risk? And that to me sends off the alarm bells that there's a problem with the program because of those high interest rates. And if it's for the public good, like a sewer project, and that's why this program can go on the tax bill, like a sewer project or any number of public benefit, the interest rates on that are nowhere near this. I mean, in reality, the interest rate to me should be in the 2 to 3%. But I'm not an expert. But it just looking at other comparables, that's what I think we ought to be talking about. I mean, for goodness sakes, I can get a mortgage. Well, I could. I don't know if I can now, but under 4% for my mortgage. And yet these are 8 and 9%. To me, that isn't right. A lot of times this isn't showing up on the preliminary title report. We've heard stories about predatory practices. There are good actors, but there's bad actors, and I don't think the protections are in place to prevent that and to prevent the price gouging on the projects. I talked about the fact you can't refinance a home. Really concerned about these allegations and maybe some evidence of some elder, I don't want to go so far as to call it elder abuse, but obviously targeting folks that their homes are paid off and they no longer have jobs, and so then they're really in a bind because they have a fixed income. This also, if somebody makes a financial mistake and it affects their credit report, that's on them. But if this is a mistake that affects the home and then there's a foreclosure, that affects a neighborhood. That eventually affects my home. And so I see this as being, putting our communities at risk more so than people making a dumb decision. I believe in buyer beware, but if you do something that ends up to really come back and bite you financially, in this case, this can affect your neighbors. It can affect the entire community. We've talked about reforms that are coming down. One reform that we haven't talked about is H.R. 1958, which is going to put requirements on PACE loans like other type of financial programs as far as truth in lending, et cetera. The industry is fighting that in D.C. So that doesn't show me that they're motivated to really fix every problem that's out there if it's going to cause delay, if they can't show up the same day, sign people up, and get to work. And this would require, I think, for things to slow down. And so I think those federal reforms are more substantial than what they're talking about at the state, yet the industry is not on board with that. That's an alarm to me. I can't change the super priority lien. I know that is the crux of the issue. And so I need to find a way to, I think, put the brakes on this project until this program, until that particular component is reformed. And I'm not going to ask the county to put, and our staff to put on layers of consumer protection. We don't have the resources for that. I mean, we're struggling to do just the basic services that we're doing now. So I think that's totally unreasonable for us to try to locally put more controls on the program. And I hope that by doing this, by supporting this motion, which I intend to do, we are going to motivate the PACE industry to be serious about the types of concerns that folks in our community and our real estate community are bringing up. And I mean that on the state level and the federal level. I think that there's a lack of common ground on the on the super priority lien, and so that's going to be that will have to be something that gets resolved, I think, before I would be willing to support this program again. So those are my thoughts. I really appreciate everybody who showed up. You know, I'm not, when we talk about the predatory practices, et cetera, this isn't to cast aspersions on anybody who showed up here. It seems like you folks are all good actors, but there definitely have been abuses that have occurred. So I see now, Couch, did you punch in again, or was that from before? But Supervisor Perez, you did? Okay, Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, Chairman. Ryan, do you have anything else to add before we go to a vote? I was stricken today by, well, the testimony is very compelling, as you know. You heard it, we all heard it together. A lot of unknowns. I'm very concerned about things I heard today, but also very concerned that on a number of issues, I don't feel I have information in front of me, or I don't have it all in front of me. I think it's very clear where the board is going. That's very clear. But do you have anything that you want to add before we move to a vote?
I don't. I think it's you know, a good CAO understands where the board's going, and will make sure that we do the work that we're directed to do on this, whatever the board decides. That would be it.
So the motion as is to come back with the actual ordinance to repeal what we have in place. That would be to absolutely do that, correct?
It would be a resolution. So you brought it in with a resolution. You would take it out with a resolution, so to speak. What's written in that resolution, the detail of that, the language, would be something that staff would have to put together and bring back for your board. You may want to be some specific. I know that Supervisor Maggard was pretty specific, but specific in your referral to staff on this about what you'd like to see. But it's a resolution you'd have to bring back.
Okay, thank you.
I know County Council we're looking at dates for this. Do you have a recommendation on the date that you'd like to have this come back?
Thank you, Chairman Scrivener. We'd request, I believe it's July 11th.
Okay, now are we dark in we're 1 week? That's why that's why it would be that many weeks. So not next week, but and the following we're dark. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Or
The agenda
we have
for-
one as budget, right?
Right. The agenda is already set for the 20th. The 27th, I believe council is looking to go the meeting after that. We are dark on the 4th of July, so it would be July 11.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Couch, did you have another comment?
I guess I'm unclear on the fuzziness of the motion because it sounds pretty clear to me. So what types of language or what are you looking for from us to put in the resolution that you don't have right now?
Well, I want to be. I want to make sure that we get it right. We'll have to draft the resolution. We'll draft it in partnership with County Council. It'll be brought back to your board the traditional way, full of information, board letter, et cetera. We're lacking that today. This is we've given a report. It's a receive and file, which you're doing, but you are adding a referral to staff to do something to bring back, and it is not something. It's not a decision that you're making where it's sort of spelled out succinctly in writing. So just to be clear, you're asking us to come back.
I'm going to let Supervisor Maggard is punched in. I'm going to allow him the opportunity. I'm sure he wants to clarify his motion, but yes, part of that is to receive and file this report, and then your motion in tandem with that will. Please reiterate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so the motion was to receive and file the report today. By the way, thank you, everybody, for your input. But the motion is to receive and file the report received today and direct staff to come back to us with a resolution that repeals and rescinds whatever of those magic words is necessary to stop the program in Kern County, in the unincorporated areas of Kern County. If you want to add language expressing some of the concerns expressed by these members, I'm not opposed to that. I suppose you should do it in paragraphs so that we can cut and paste the ones that we don't like, if you present some, but it seems to me that less is more here. And if this passes, the will of this board is for the PACE and HERO program in its various forms not to continue in the unincorporated areas of Kern County, period. And I think that's sufficient. And if somebody wants to bring it back someday in another form, then let them do that, and we can vote on that when that happens.
Okay, and you, Supervisor Couch, you seconded that motion. Do you concur? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 opposed. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you, everyone. And so that will be on July 11th if you have interest in that meeting. Okay, that brings us, you guys aren't finished? We have 6 more items today on our agenda. No. That will bring us to the conclusion of our agenda, and so I would entertain a motion to adjourn to June 20th at 9 a.m.
So moved.
We are adjourned.
Whatever.